Early if it's Central Time.
Good evening, folks. I'd like to call to order the February 26th meeting of the Falmouth Planning Board. The first thing on our agenda is,
Make the announcement.
oh, the announcement, yes. We received a letter, in case any of you are waiting for the Woods Hole project. They have some unresolved issues, and they've asked to be pulled off this meeting and come back, what's the date?
On the 12th.
On the 12th, March 12th. So we will not be hearing the Woods Hole Group tonight. If anyone's here for that, that is not going to be on our agenda. Doesn't look like anyone's here for that. Okay.
For the record, the Woods Hole Group is the Dome, they might not.
Right, they may not, yeah, that's the Dome property, in case you don't. All right. So next on our agenda is the minutes of January
26.
26, 2019, and February 12th, which was the joint meeting. Have all the members have time to read the minutes? Have you all had it? Everyone has?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the minutes of the joint meeting of January 26th with 6 boards, as well as the planning board meeting of February 12th, 2019, as corrected.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. The next thing on our agenda is public comment. This is for something that's not on our agenda. If you have something you would like the planning board to discuss in the future or talk about, we open this up for anyone to come up, and you must come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and tell us, you get 2 minutes to talk about what you're interested in. 2 minutes? Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, member of the boards. My name is Hal Chuber. I'm a consulting engineer with offices at 112 State Road in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. And I'm here representing 797 LLC, Main Street LLC. This is,
Wait, stop. That's on our agenda. This is for things that are not on our agenda.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said the public.
Public comment on things that are not on the agenda. Excuse me, I thought I said that. I did. Okay, I did say that.
Yeah, play the tape.
So,
Do a
you understand, this is for things that are not on our agenda. Hearing none, we'll move on. Now, you're up. Public discussion, applicant 797 Main Street LLC. For the applicant,
Yes, for the record,
do you have
I
your-
do have it, but I also have other materials that I would
Well,
like the
we
board
really
to.
require all the important stuff to be put on the screen
Okay.
because the reason being, the people at home cannot see some of the times that
Oh,
you
I
have on
wasn't
that
aware of
screen.
that, okay.
So this is what we need. We need to work here if you can.
That's fine.
And if we can't see it, then we'll look at something
You
else.
should actually read that too, Jim.
Okay, wants me to read the thing. The application to construct a mixed-use structure with 2,700 square feet, restaurant on the first floor, and 3 residential units located above at 797 Main Street. Good? Okay,
Okay, so for the record, my name is Hal Chuba. I'm a consulting engineer with offices at 112 State Road in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. I'm here representing the applicant, 797 Main Street LLC on this application. This is a redevelopment of an existing site, what used to be the Cumberland Farms site. I'm sure you're all familiar with the site. The project is located at 797 Main Street, and the site measures approximately 0.43 acres. That's about 18,750 square feet, which is shy of the 20,000 square feet that's required in the bylaws, but this is an existing non-conforming lot that was created prior to the enactment of the zoning bylaws. So we know it's an existing non-conforming. There's an existing, the next sheet shows the existing site. There's a building, an L-shaped building on the site, approximately 1,850 square feet, and that's the remaining of the Cumberland Farms, what used to be the convenience store. To the north of the building, between Main Street and the building, what used to be the canopy with the 2 pumps that was removed with the underground storage tanks about 2 years ago. Now, the new owner, the applicant of this application would like to redevelop this site by keeping the existing footprint of the foundation and squaring the building, the L-shaped building, by adding another 800 square feet to the south. But while I have the existing condition on, I'd like to point out to the board that the access through this is via 2 existing curb cuts on Main Street. 94% of the site is covered with impervious surfaces. It means it's all paved with hardly any landscape. The existing building that's on the site it doesn't conform to the setback. The side setback from Cycle Street is 10 feet, and the building is closer than 10 feet to the property line. So we also have an existing non-conforming structure on this site. The next slide, or the next plan, shows the addition to the south, to the rear of the building. The addition is about 836 square feet. The new addition would be in compliance with the zoning bylaws. So the new addition will be in compliance with the rear setback and the side setback. Also, with the proposed site improvements, we are proposing to close the eastern curb cut of the lot, add approximately 4,000 square feet of green space, eliminate the parking that is in the front of the building between Main Street and the existing building, and add to parking or to the rear of the building and to the side in compliance with section 240-40. Also, part of the site improvements will be drainage improvements. Currently, all the runoff from the site sheet flows to Main Street and Cycle Ave with no collection or treatment. with the new, with the site, new development, all the runoff on-site from the roof and the pavement would be captured by a closed drainage system and kept on-site in infiltration system. I would like to point out that the currently, we had some comments, I'm sure you have comments from engineering, fire, and also from the neighbors, but I would like to point out that the existing building on the site is 14%. With the new addition, the new lot coverage would be 14%, less than 20% allowed by zoning bylaws. We have 21 parking spaces proposed. According to your zoning bylaws, we propose a fast food restaurant on the first floor that you need 1 per 2 seats. We propose 30 seats. For the 30 seats, we need the 15 parking spaces. Also, the apartments, it's a 2-bedroom apartment, so each apartment requires 2 parking spaces. That's 6 and 15, 21. We do have 21 parking spaces. I know there was some discussions about parking. Unfortunately, if we had more parking, we would have asked for 50 seats for the restaurant. The reason we're here for 30 seats because we can only accommodate 21 parking spaces. And also, I would like to point out that this development is in compliance with your section 240-40, which I would read as this is part of the Town of Falmouth planning review, and this is part of your zoning bylaws. The purpose of this article is to promote the revitalization of commercial centers using mixed-use redevelopment integrating retail, office, restaurant, and community services uses as housing, such as second-floor apartments, condominiums, and townhomes. This is exactly what we're doing here. We're taking, this is a combination of a small restaurant on the first floor and 3 apartments on top. This redevelopment fosters pedestrian-friendly streetscapes by requiring rear and side yard parking. This is exactly what we're doing here. We are eliminating the parking in the front and shifting the parking to the side and to the rear of the building, allowing shared parking between businesses and uses. We are open to we can work with any neighbors that might offer something here. We're not, we're here to work with everyone. Reducing and consolidating curb cuts. Yes, we have 2 curb cuts. We propose to eliminate one and close it and turn that paved space into green space. Allowing parking reduction in exchange for on-site green space. We are increasing green space by 21% over the existing conditions. The district also relaxes front, side, and rear yard setbacks to encourage sidewalk. We're not asking for any relief. The new addition would meet the site, the setback requirement. And development and pedestrian-friendly storefronts to offer street-side gathering places in front of redeveloped property rather than front yard parking fields. That's exactly what we're doing. We have an outdoor patio in the summertime as an option for the small restaurants. If people are in and they would like to sit outside, they have the option to take their food and sit outside. And this is exactly in compliance with section 240-40. So I would say we have an opportunity here to develop in a vacant site or whatever, unattractive maybe, I'm not, to say, but we also have the rendering of the proposed building that I submitted also with this application. The proposed building would be 2.5-story building. You have the floor layout of the restaurant. It's a small restaurant. The entire building is 2,500 square feet, and I see a lot of comments from different people say, this is not a banquet, this is a 2,500 square foot building with almost 500 square feet of common space on the first floor to access the apartments on the second floor. So you're looking at a 2,000 square foot restaurant, similar to what's next door and east of that. I have the elevation of the building. The design is in compliance with the surrounding. I did have the comments from the planning board staff, and they say it's in harmony with the So, you know, and the reason I wanted to, we wanted to come in tonight too, because we wanted to present our project and get some input from the planning board, because you are the board who's voting on this, and we are here for site plan review. If we need to go, we understand we need to go to the zoning board for, modification of existing non-conforming structure. We will do that after we're done with the site plan review. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Well, I have some questions. We're gonna wait to see if anyone else does. Charlotte, would you like to go first?
Well, I don't know if they're questions, they're more nearly like concerns. There's a lot of, on the floor plan that shows the number of seats, there's a lot of open space there. It looks as if you really could seat a lot more people there, and might be doing that, in which case you're going to exceed the parking limits.
Okay, well, in this case, we're going to the zoning board. If you would like to put a condition that there's be no more than 30 seats aggregate in the restaurant, what means between indoor seating and outdoor seating, we can comply with that. We can place a plaque on the building from the building department saying, or the fire department, not to exceed 30 capacity, maximum capacity 30 seats. And they do this everywhere. I don't see how I don't understand if showing the seats on the plans is the issue. I mean, we can take the seats out. I'm not sure what we're, the seating is for 30 people max. That's what I'm saying. So it doesn't, we want, if we have more room, it doesn't mean that we're gonna go squeeze people and seat people. Is that what you're telling me? I don't know. I mean, I'm saying you can place a condition on this application that will be no more than 30 people in the restaurant, and it's not. I mean, you can enforce it. They do this everywhere.
I guess what I'm questioning is the adequacy of the parking. How many employees do you have parking for?
Ma'am, I don't know what kind, it's a fast food restaurant, could be a couple of employees, I'm not sure. This is similar exactly to the 649 Main Street. And just to let the board, I've been coming to this board since probably 2000. I've been in front of this board for the last 25 years. I was involved in several, half a dozen projects in town, and specifically on Main Street. This is similar to the project that we did on 649. I don't know if some of you board members were on.
What's the tenant at that, what's the tenant at that address? I don't remember the address. Is there someone there? 649, what is that?
There used to be a bank on the first floor and 3 apartments on the second floor, and Cape Cod Creperie.
Okay,
So
that's what, then I know where it is.
So this is the same. There used to be a gas station there.
Right.
The applicant at that time came here, and we took the gas station down. We put and the lot is smaller, and the parking, I believe we have 40, on 649, we have 14 parking spaces. We have 21 parking spaces here. And the lot was 11,490 square feet. This is almost 18,750. It's almost 20,000 square feet. Also, we did the gas station, the Save-On gas station too. I don't know if you recall what used to be a garage, repair garages when we redeveloped that site, we turned the garages into a convenience store on the first floor and 3 apartments on the second. We also have a lot less parking on that lot, and the lot area is 16,750 square feet. So this is really in harmony with what this board had approved in the past. So but again, we're here to hear your concerns and see if we can work with you. I know some of the neighbors had concerns, but we can address that too.
Pam?
So as I look at the plan with the tables, it's hard to tell whether those are tables or booths,
Right.
but each one of those 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tables look to me like they could easily accommodate 4 people, which is an immediate 28. And then you have the 4, I forgot what they're called, higher tables, high-top tables, which could easily accommodate 4.
Okay.
And then you have all the outdoor seating.
Right.
So what immediately jumps out, as well as the apartments, is that the parking is totally inadequate. Now, if you say we could cut down the number of seats, who's gonna enforce that? I mean, that's a tough thing to do in
Yeah, but
Falmouth.
your zoning bylaws says you need 1 per 2 seats. I'm applying for a 30-seat restaurant. I'm not applying for a 50-seat restaurant.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah,
But-
but that's not, that's
but
an
my-
enforcement issue. That's not, I mean, really, I mean, I'm not, this is similar to the one next door with the, it's a, fast food restaurant, unless, I understand, also, if I may, too. I mean, this is right, this is under the business redevelopment, too. I mean, there's another option. If you tell me I need to go to the zoning board and get your relief on the parking and go ask for relief for 10 parking spaces, that, if this is how you feel, we can do that.
I wouldn't want you to get relief from the parking. I would want you to add more parking, is what I'm saying, or decrease the number of seats, because.
How can I, no, I mean, how can I add more parking? If this project is across the street from the recreational center, right? Is there any way we can give some credit for that? It's in the back of the parking lot of, for the Island Queen. I mean, people, in your zoning bylaws, you say you want to promote pedestrian-friendly facilities. This is the whole reason you rezoned that section. So now you're telling me that I have.
I'm not telling you anything. I'm just saying, from my observation, looking at the plan.
Right.
It appears to me that the possibility of many more seats than you are proposing exists between the outside and the
Okay,
indoor.
I can eliminate the seats, ma'am. That's an easy, I mean, this is I can come back and revise my floor layout and show you less seating. Is that what we're looking for?
Well, this is my opinion, and I'm
Yeah.
just making a comment that I'm concerned that you have what appears to me to be way more seating
Okay,
than you are
okay,
presenting,
sure,
okay?
yeah.
Okay, I have a question,
Yes,
but I think it needs to be answered by the engineers. The engineer here?
I am the
He's
engineer.
the engineer.
Okay. I thought you were the architect, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm both, architect, engineers, and
Okay.
a lawyer. No.
Well,
no.
I don't see, I went through the plan, and what I don't see is the elevations as you move across the parking lot. I know that this site, because it's all paved,
Yeah.
has a giant sheet flow that when it rains, the water just flows over the whole thing.
Okay.
And here it looks like, and I know it as a site that goes all downhill, but if I'm reading this correct, I want to see how you get the water to that drain, which right now, unless you're going to be digging it down, I don't see the elevation.
Well, look at the grades. You have, if you look at sheet,
That's what, I was looking for a
yeah,
topographical map showing the grade.
sheet 4 of 11, sir. That's
What
what
am
I'm
I on?
telling you.
Sheet 4.
I'm on the right sheet, and so this is 16, 17, you're saying,
18, it's 18 in the front and 16, everything is going to the back.
but you're saying, but 17's higher than 16. I mean, the water doesn't flow uphill.
No, 18 is in the,
But it's 16 on Cycle
everything
Ave.
is flowing to the
Cycle
back.
out. And what is the height of the, right through where you show the drain, the proposed deep water sump infiltrate?
That's 17 too.
So that's uphill of 16.
How's it up? Sir,
Am I
the
missing something?
the catch basin elevation, if you look at the grade, the rim elevation is 1680. I have to put my,
I'm sorry, my eyes must be bad, I don't see that.
yeah, no, everything
That
is.
shows
sheet-
17 there, and that shows 16 here.
16.8. So
So-
six-
So 18 in the front and it's 1680 in the back.
In particular, I'm talking about the catch basin in the back southeast corner of the land,
In the corner of Cycle Ave.
in the
where-
corner of Cycle Ave.
Where it
And it
wraps
shows an
around.
elevation of 17, which is a foot higher than the elevation of Cycle Ave, which is 16. How does that work?
I have to,
When-
I.
No, I see it. Jack and Jill to bring the water uphill.
We'll have more questions, I just.
No, 1580, I don't. Oh, okay, yes, okay. Thank you. Yeah, you have 18 contour around 18, and then you have the 17 around the catch basin, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the 15, the catch basin grade is at 1680.
Yeah, then it
Okay.
slopes off.
And sir, this was reviewed by the town engineer, so I can guarantee you that this is in compliance. So,
Okay, I just didn't see how the water,
no, so you see it now, or you don't?
no, I see 17, I see a 17 line going right to the,
17 around the catch basin. And then the catch basin is at 1680, so it's 2/10 lower than the 17. This is 17. This is 18, so.
I'm referring to the catch basin in the other corner of the land, which would be the, why I referred to it
This
as
one
the
here?
southeast, yes, I thought that was
Yeah, that's
southeast.
the same thing. It's, everything in the back is 18, it goes down to 17, and then the catch basin is 1680, that's the lowest elevation. So we're collecting all the water from the back into 2 catch basins.
I don't know, according to his comments, no drainage map was provided, and the calculations do not meet the town standards. However, what is shown on the plans would be capable of mitigating for the 25-year storm, given the impervious area in the calculations, and accounting for the entire remainder of the lot is pervious. No revisions to the calculations are required.
Are required, yeah.
But Jim,
Yes, sorry.
from what Bob is reading, it goes on, the engineering division is saying they won't approve a driveway permit
Right.
for what's shown on the plans.
Right, there was, okay,
So
I
this-
can.
This hasn't gone
And
past,
a drainage map
engineering
showing
yet.
no off-site runoff should be provided to show compliance.
I'll explain that, and also, I don't wanna get you confused, we have a revised set of plans that you're gonna send to the engineer, so I'm assuming that we're not gonna have our approval tonight, or we might continue the hearing, so I wanted to get your input tonight, and then I can make all the revisions on the plans. So, I'll tell you what the reason behind this, because if you look at the 18 contours, on the, around the driveway, you have a 17 contour around the driveway. So we left about 40 by 40 portion of the driveway to drain to the street. And the reason we did that, because we would have to install a catch basin there and pipe it back to this catch basin here. And we have a sewer and water line, we might have a conflict with that. So we figured we're picking up 85% of the lot, the 15 or the 2,000 square feet, 40 by 50, the driveway can go to the street line, as opposed to now the entire,
We'll wait till you get with more.
Yes,
I'm
that-
not an engineer.
that's
okay? I'll
exactly,
wait for the
okay.
engineers
But you
to see
tell me,
your plan.
I'm telling you that we're
I'll
gonna.
wait for the engineers to
yes,
see your
we are going to satisfy the engineering department and revise the plans according to their review.
Jim?
So,
Charlotte,
could you go back to the elevations where, we'll leave off on the engineering because you're gonna go back and you'll be back before us anyway. But if you go back to the elevations, could we talk about the appearance of the building?
yes,
Would you do that?
sure.
Thank you. To me, the building looks top-heavy. It's true, it meets the height standards that we have in the zoning. It's 35 feet. But because the gables are so big and the roof, you've had to pitch it in that way, it's just a very, very top-heavy building. It doesn't fit it doesn't fit the foundation. That'd be one. So I think the massing of the
Doesn't
building,
fit the
to me
foundation.
at least, has a problem. The way that the windows are arranged, they're not in scale to the rest of the building, particularly on the second floor, on the front of the building as it's shown, on the gables face the street, right? So the
Yes,
front of the building and on the side of the building, and because of the placement of that building surrounded by asphalt and higher than the bank building beside it, the sides of the building are going to be very visible from the street. They'll be very much a part of the streetscape, and they don't appear in scale to the rest of the building.
okay.
What materials are you showing there?
Hardy, or siding and asphalt shingle, architectural asphalt shingle.
Is it clapboard? What?
Yeah, that's hardy plank, yeah, same as
That's
clapboard.
concrete, right? Hardy board's a concrete
Yeah,
product.
yeah,
Right.
but it looks like wood, just like wood.
Looks like wood,
Similar to what's there next door or next door.
Yeah.
So it would be painted, or it would
Yes,
be,
will
have
be
some
painted, yeah.
integral color in it? And what color were you thinking?
It'll be an earth tone color, I'm not sure. It won't be like,
You don't know yet.
green. No, I mean, if you have a preference, we really, you know.
I
if
don't,
you-
I just wonder what your thinking was.
Yeah.
And the trim
Yeah.
doesn't appear in scale to the building.
It'll be white
The building
trim.
is so big-looking compared to the detailing that you've given it, so it looks really skimpy.
Okay,
So I think, at least to me, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, there are problems with the appearance of the building. I understand that the square footage upstairs on the third floor, that's a three-story building, and it's really good that you're planning to put residences above. That's great.
right.
Very nice, thank you. But the way that it's being done, trying to fit 3 spaces into that space,
Yeah.
I think that you're allowed to have only half as much floor space on the third floor as
Correct.
on the second.
50%, yeah,
But it didn't appear to be that from the drawings.
right.
What is the area of the third floor?
I don't have it on the plan.
Building
It's
code
over,
definition.
it's over 50%. No, I agree. No,
Why did you
I'm
present
going
that?
to, huh?
Why did you present that when we're 2.5 stories?
Okay, well,
That's a... Paul?
I had a couple of issues. One is,
Sure.
appreciate the fact that you're cutting out one of the access, curb cuts. I think that's a good idea, and you're moving the building closer to Main Street, and that's a multi-use building. But
I don't believe they're moving the building
They're not
closer to
moving
Main
it.
Street.
They're
That
putting
is
in the
not
doors.
correct.
Seems to be closer.
No,
I
it's
don't
'cause
think,
they-
I
No,
think
no,
it says they're
doesn't
putting on the exact same footprint. What I
we're
read.
just squaring, right, we're eliminating the parking between between
patio
They're
makes
they're
it
putting in
closer.
this terrace.
Yeah.
The other issue was parking. We've talked about that, so I
Right.
won't repeat that. The other issue, I have a concern like Charlotte does too, about what the visual impact of that building doesn't seem to fit in
Okay.
what we're trying to do on Main Street. So I'll just leave it at that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, certainly, that's why we're here. We take, so it's not,
I don't believe you could get a building permit for this with the third floor being more than 50% of the second
Right,
floor. So
right.
that's what I don't understand, why it's even in front of us.
no, I think it's close. It could be, it's very close in the area. It's not, and the reason, because of the dormers, we're gonna go back and modify the elevation of the building and reduce the size of the dormers, and that will bring us back to 50% or less, so.
Pull them back from the facade of the building.
Yes.
You need anything, Pat?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. Pat?
I think it's too much for the site. When you say, well, maybe a couple of employees, any other fast food restaurant along there that I've been in has more than 3 employees. Never less than 3, unless somebody's out sick. Well, no, not even less than 3. So many more. So it's disingenuous to say, well, we don't need to provide parking for the employees, more than 2 spaces. I don't know where they're gonna park.
I didn't say we don't provide parking. I said, according to the zoning, your zoning bylaws doesn't say you have to have so many parking for employees, and it says if you have this use, this is what you need. If you have this use, this is what you need. But I understand it's a concern that you have, so I'm not,
Certainly is a concern I have.
Right.
Because they're gonna park someplace, or you aren't gonna
I
have
agree,
anybody
I
serving the
agree.
patrons.
But also, maybe the zoning bylaws should be more specific and say if you have a restaurant and you need one parking for the cook, one parking for this, one parking, you know, I'm not,
My comment is it's too much for the space.
Okay.
There is
Yeah,
grossly
well taken.
insufficient parking. The, I'm not sure how in the world you're going to say, well, okay, we'll just take some of the tables out. Somebody will move some in as soon as it's built. And you can limit the number of people in the restaurant, but who's gonna enforce it? You're gonna have the people police come by to enforce it every day, several times a day? I just don't buy that one. It's too intense use for that site to be covered by the parking. It would be lovely if you could say, well, we're gonna share the 6 spaces that are required for the apartments, because they're only gonna be there at night, and this restaurant isn't gonna be used at night. But you're gonna have those 6 spaces for the apartments. You might wanna designate it. Now, that takes out 6 from the 21, and how many for the employees? You're getting down to very few for the patrons of the restaurant.
Okay.
And I understand, we want this walkable. So you're not gonna have people walking in the kind of weather we've had. They're gonna wanna drive and park there. Now, the other thing I'd like to see is a much better landscape plan. I appreciate that you're going to put green space there, because there sure as heck isn't green space now. And I do appreciate that. That will add to it, but I do think that the building is too large for the space, and the use does not fit the number of spaces allowed for parking.
okay.
I have a question for the town planner.
Sure.
Under business redevelopment, businesses are allowed to share parking. Now, they have to have something in writing for, is it 3 years?
5 years.
5 years. Have you explored that possibility of sharing parking and getting such an agreement?
No, we haven't.
Because that might take care of the employee
The
parking issue.
employee, yeah.
Because I don't know how much space Eastman's has behind it, but that could be something there, too. I have a question for Charlotte. If you look at the side facade, would you prefer that as the front facade? I think that's a better looking,
I
It
do
is
too.
better looking. I
better
see,
looking
I see what you're
for
saying.
the street, because it steps the mass of the building back, where the other one, it's just this big mass
The
right on
way,
the
the
street.
way they've arranged the parking in the entrance to the building, what is being shown to us as facing Main Street
Right.
is really going to be the side of the building, because it faces the terrace.
The lower
That
one,
people
yeah.
will take their
Right.
food out to eat there,
Right.
yeah.
But having a large gable end like that, right on Main Street, it looks,
It's not going to.
it's too boxy and too
If
big.
you picture where it's going to be, you'll be driving, say, from our end of Main Street down to that end of Main Street. You'll just have gone by the Marx Building on your left, which has actually very beautiful proportions. It's a very deep building with a beautifully pitched roof, and this building will be just a little further down the street on the right. So the height is probably good, but the massing, because they'll kind of balance each other now that you're planning something that height, but the massing of this building destroys the intention. So it'd be good to see what you come back with.
I think, I know what you're getting at, so we can go back and,
Yeah.
yes.
I just wanted to mention, I'm not an architect, and I really don't know how to tell you to do it, but I can tell you, I don't like what I see, that much I do know.
Okay.
It looks like a top-heavy sailboat with so much sail in the wind, it's gonna get blown over and tipped over. It looks extremely top-heavy to me.
Okay.
That's my uneducated opinion.
Well taken.
And I've been going through the Yarmouth design and site plan standards, and one of their objectives is to protect and enhance the character and quality of Yarmouth, and we could say Falmouth, while maintaining and strengthening a recognizable identity and character that is unique to Yarmouth, or in this case, Falmouth. And what was just mentioned about you drive down the street, how it changes. And when we're looking at form-based code, you look around at the other buildings around it, and like was mentioned, the Marx Building is across the street, and there are some other buildings that are different aesthetically, and that we try to blend newer buildings in with those aesthetics, not duplicate them,
Right, I
but kind
understand.
of.
We can probably incorporate some details. in
Are you
the-
familiar with form-based code?
The what?
Form-based code?
The form-based code?
It's a type of zoning code that we're experimenting, looking at. It's it's based on the buildings, their scale, their
Yeah, I can
size,
look.
how they're placed, and all that.
With interface with the street and the relationship to the buildings around
Yeah.
them. We haven't implemented yet, but it's kind of what we're looking at. We're looking for a balance. We're moving that direction, but what we're doing here is site plan review and design review. But so
Right.
the design review is we do have a say on the look of the building. And that's, Bob's telling you the direction we're going.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
John, I haven't heard from you?
I would just say that, as far as the looks of the building, I know you can make it look a lot nicer. It's gonna pretty much stand alone because it's alone right now. The building to the right of it is not, they're very attractive, and maybe in the future, something will happen to that also. But I just wanted to mention that, excuse me, when Pam asked you about the seating, it's just a little discouraging to have you come in with a plan, and you're asking for 30 seats, and you show 60 seats on the plan. It's a little discouraging.
Okay.
So, I'm sure you can make the adjustments, but you're correct, this is a redevelopment area, and this is the type of thing that, type of business that could go well here, but you had some problems here, so.
I would have thought that parking would be the least problem, according to your rezoning of that section of the town, but I understand, you know. As I mentioned, across the street, there's recreational
The new senior
center
center
with.
that's being built, that's gonna have all kinds of parking requirements.
Trust me, I'm not,
What's approved across the street is gonna add a huge amount of parking to the site, across the street.
We'll give you a couple of thoughts that you might be able to use.
okay.
But,
Well, I mean, I said, we're here to work with you, we're not, you know, it's just, and, you know, it's an eyesore right now, you know, I mean, we're trying to make it worthwhile for the developer too. I mean, it would be nice to do, if we don't incorporate the number of apartments and all that, it becomes economically not feasible too, you know, so we have to understand that there's a balance here that, you know, we need, and we're here to work with you, we work with the neighbors. I know one of the neighbors is here too, the immediate neighbor, and we can explore parking with them too, you know, so this is something that we're willing to work with anyone, you know, so we're not,
Just a question, has everyone on the board seen the correspondence that relates to this? If there's
Yeah.
letters in the file, go,
Yeah.
okay, we don't have to read it, but I want to make sure everyone's seen the letters from other architects and the design, and you've all seen that,
Yeah.
okay?
And has the applicant?
I don't know if the applicant
yes,
has.
they were mailed to me this afternoon. I have seen them. The one from the engineer, actually, Tom sent them to me about 10 days ago, so I've seen them. I've addressed most. This will be technical review between my office and the engineer, but will be addressed.
In particular, there's a letter from Jill Neubauer. It talks about architectural design. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Because we are really concerned about how buildings look on our main street.
Okay.
And we don't get to tell people what they can do with their house. We don't get to tell people but on our main streets, we actually get to tell people how we want our main streets to look. We want this to interface with the town, with the street, and be
Sure.
part of our community, and not just be the most you can get out of that one site.
Sure.
So that's,
And for an extended period of time, too. And buildings are gonna change uses over time, and we want that to kind of work as well.
Right.
but this building's gonna have the capacity to have the size of it, 2,000, what the ground floor is gonna be, it'd be huge. It could have 60 people, 70 people in it,
Yeah.
Plus the outside.
plus the outside. They could stand up. They may not have just because you're showing no seats, people still come, and that's the part we don't buy. You know, you're showing a huge floor plan, and you're only counting 30 seats, and we think you could put 100 seats in that size building if you had the parking. And that's the issue we have.
Okay. That's we'll take.
That's a real issue.
Yeah.
So, as I look at that building, I absolutely agree with Charlotte. It doesn't fit. And as we look at form-based, as we move ahead, and we think of streetscapes and what the town looks like, part of what's so appealing in our downtown is there are varieties of buildings, and it looks like Falmouth. And I've only been here for 3.5 years, but I could go to any other community now and think, geez, Falmouth looks much better. This, I don't think would enhance the look of the town at all. And on top of your indoor seating, you could clearly, just with the seating that you showed, could have 16 to 24 outdoor seats. And then you couple that with the indoor seating, and you are way, way above any possible limit for your 21 parking places. And the other thing that I think you really need to address is that your third floor is almost identical in size to the second floor.
50%, it's not.
It isn't.
No, it will be 50% of the
So
of the
if you
second
do
floor.
that, then you could clearly decrease that massive size of that top
Yes, ma'am.
floor. And I think all you need to do, and you said you've been here for a long time, I've only been here for 3.5 years, so what do I know? But I do know that I've not seen a building that looks like that on Main Street. And I don't really want to see a building that looks like that on Main Street.
Okay.
And I'll just make one more comment on the seating. I happen to be involved with buildings on Main Street further down, and where they don't have any parking requirement in the B1 zone. And at a 2,500 square foot building, we got a 90-seater restaurant approved, okay? And you could fit a 90-seat restaurant on this ground floor, and you're saying it's only 30 or whatever. So that's why we don't buy it. It just doesn't fit.
because of
Now,
the parking.
downtown, we want, in the walking distance, we don't have setbacks, the buildings across the street, it's supposed to, everybody walks, that's what we want for our downtown. But in this area, we gotta have the parking, and it just doesn't, anyways, I just wanna make that comment. You could fit 90 seats in that restaurant in that floor plan, but you
Jim?
just wouldn't, you can't do it because of the parking. So just not showing the seating isn't working for me.
Jim, Bob?
Just one other comment. One of the other things that Yarmouth promotes is energy and resource efficiency. Is there any plan for solar panels or anything like that? And I would think if you reorientated the roof, you might be able to do that. Because if I had my druthers, anything over 5,000 square feet should produce 25 to 50% of its own energy. That's if I was king, but I'm not.
We could make you king.
Charlotte?
I feel we've really beat up on him, that we've done a good job there. So what I'd like to say is the parts I like, and maybe that we all like. I
Yeah.
think it's great that you put a seating area out to the front, so that people who are walking there or across the street at Gus Canty can come over, sit down, get something to eat, and be outdoors in the nice weather. And you've landscaped the whole front of that. There's no landscaping at all down in that area. It's all asphalt. So this is an enormous improvement to that area. You've put landscaping to the side between you and, is it Eastern? That's to that side. You're suggesting landscape separating you from the parking area, actually, that, Eastern Bank has that kind of encircles you there on both sides. That part's good. The height of the building is going to be good if you manage the third floor differently. The idea of making it that kind of trim and gable style, that's good too, and so are the materials. So there are some things there that are definitely likable, and we'll look forward to seeing it come back.
Thank you.
And definitely the part about adding apartments above. I mean,
Mixed use.
we
love
have
it.
had some developers that say, nope, not gonna do it, and we appreciate the fact that you're willing to do that, because that is a big part of our local comprehensive plan.
Everybody all set?
Swoop me up.
At this point, I'd like to open up to the public. Is anyone here from the public like to comment on this property?
I thought I was speaking for Grant when I,
Even though we know who you are, you need to state your name.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm Grant Walker, 71 Philadelphia Street, and I would ask the applicant to respond to Board Member Robert Leary's comments about energy efficiency and possible solar panels in the design next time. I think that people in the community would love to hear that. And I thank you for that. You were speaking
I have one other comment. Despite the fact that Falmouth has not incorporated, has not voted town meeting to have the stretch code, I would love to see builders voluntarily start to work toward those energy efficient modalities when building new structures in town.
Anyone else? Step up and identify yourself, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ali Jamal, and I own 815 Main Street, and also, as one of the members said, the ugly building next door, the bait shop, and Hog and Dogs, which will probably renovate it soon. I have lots of comments, but I'm gonna hold them, only because I want for the record. Other than that, I like to hold my comments till I see the other design that the applicant will come with. And then, at that time, if it's satisfactory, then I will, if it's not satisfactory, then I will obviously come in and oppose it.
Okay. And you can also send them in writing, too.
We have.
Yeah.
We have, my lawyer have.
Okay,
That's
well,
number one.
that was
Number
your
two,
letter.
The only reason I'm here is because normally if you have a neighbor, they will call you and say, we are neighbor, we'd like to work with you, or we'd like to let you know what's going on. That didn't happen. So I think it's not appropriate to just go ahead and plow through. We have talked to all our neighbors when we did our project. And we own properties in 32 cities and towns, and not once we didn't talk to our neighbor. And we might be buying something else in Falmouth on Main Street, and we'll absolutely talk to our neighbors like we always do. Thank you.
Okay.
Jim?
Yeah.
We always encourage any developer to please reach out to the neighbors, because I will guarantee you, when you have open communication back and forth, and the developer comes to the board, it's a much richer, more vibrant, robust discussion, because he's already reached out to the neighbors. So we encourage all developers, builders, whatever, to do that.
So, Tom, we need to continue this. First of all, everyone that needed to speak has had a chance tonight, right? Just want to make sure we're not avoiding that. So we're going to have, the developer's going to come back with some revisions. We need to have a future date.
Our next planning board meeting is March 12th. I guess the question for Mr. Chuba, do you think you'll have a revised plan and other things the board has discussed by March 12th date, or do you need more time for that?
We probably need more time with that.
So March 26th?
The 26th? Okay. March 26th.
Very well.
Okay.
Continue to March 26th.
Do we have to make a motion to that, or is that just,
Site
we're
plan
done?
review.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, this way, if I have it prior to that, I can at least send you something, talk to the engineer, so we're both
Yeah,
on
but
the
we're
same
gonna
page.
schedule, we're pretty busy right now, we're getting a lot of things, the dates are gonna fill up, so you're gonna be the 26th.
Okay.
You won't get back on the schedule, I think that'll get filled in with
Yeah,
other
no, I
people.
understand, but I'm saying, if I get something prior to that, at least I'll give you a chance to look, or give Dom a chance to look at it before the hearing. I'm not gonna send you something.
I just have one question, I just realized, our staff, Corey, you worked on the staff review, do we cover everything that you brought up? Do we have anything that we didn't?
I think it'll be further addressed.
Everything needs to be further addressed, so we'll have another shot at it, the next plan, so we can look at everything again.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna start we're gonna do it again, when we come up with a new plan, we'll start from the beginning.
Sure.
And look at the whole thing, you've heard our concerns, and we'll see how you deal with
I
it.
did, yeah. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Good,
thank you.
all set, thank you very much.
Public hearings.
See, I can't tell which article.
Okay, we're now gonna move on to the public hearings section as things that relate for town meeting. Give us a second to get our paperwork lined up here. Be careful not to hear the microphones when you move the paperwork. You wanna switch drawings, Pam?
Yes, I just need to get my,
Yeah.
What did I do with it?
Very good.
Did you like that?
I like that. We have notices for the public hearings.
This one? Okay.
Petition on Article 23, minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet in sewer service areas. It's Article 23. It was published in the Falmouth Enterprise on February 8th, 2019, February 15th, 2019.
Were they all done that way, Paul? Because we could just, all different publishing dates.
I'll just continue on.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you read them all so we don't have to.
Article 21 and 22 was also published the same dates, February 8th and February 15th. And I think the only three we have.
We're gonna go on to
25.
the-
They're all published on the same date,
okay,
dates.
dates.
Okay. The first item on the hearing is Article 240-23 and 240-38, accessory apartments. Nope,
No, Article 240-23, minimum lot size.
can't say they're right above it.
It keeps on going, though. They're all-
Okay, it's part of the same thing, correct. Accessory apartment, so there's three things in that. Minimum lot size 7,000 in the sewer area. Delete the word enhanced from the septic system, and change the minimum lot size to 7,000. They all relate to 240-23.
We
And
tried
two-
to batch them together for you.
And 240-38, so they're all being dealt with at one time in this one. So, let's deal with them right in order. Minimum lot size, 7,000 square feet. This is petitioner's article. Is the petitioner here?
Yes.
Please step up and identify yourself.
Yes, John Banner, 7 Toledo. I've got a few slides. Mark and I, 22 and 23 are almost duplicates, as you can see. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
One says exclude, so I don't know if you want to kind of do this together.
Just confusing.
That confused me in the reading.
Yeah. Because one specifically says in a sewer service area, and the other doesn't say that.
So other than that, they're really about the same, but
Right.
Well, hold on for a second. Which is the one that's printed in the warrant?
Both.
they both are.
They
There
both
are two
are.
petition articles. Essentially, one is 7,000 square feet minimum in the sewer area, and the other is 7,000 square feet
Anywhere.
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 Okay,
Right.
thank you.
That's
That
different.
clarifies it.
Which one are we talking about?
Yeah.
But tonight-
And they're
Sewer
both-
area.
Yeah. Okay, so just a few slides, I'll go through them very quickly, but it's Article 22 proposes, we just change the wording from the lot size shall be no less than from 7,500 square feet to 7,000 square feet. I mean, I know you know all this, but the accessory apartment bylaw originally came out in September, in spring 17 town meeting. And this is right out of the text of the bylaw. This is the basis for it, the intent. Broaden the range of housing, encourage greater diversity, especially for young adults. Allow for aging in place and promote more economic, energy efficient use. All this while maintaining the appearance in the neighborhood. So last November's town meeting voted to amend the accessory apartment bylaw based on the recommendation by the working group, made up from planning, zoning, affordable housing, several other town departments. And one of the major amendments was to introduce a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet, whereas the original bylaw had no minimum lot size. Based on the working group's comments at the town meeting, the justification for 7,500 square foot minimum lot size was that if it was smaller, it might be too small to accommodate the accessory apartment and/or be too small to accommodate the sewage disposal requirements. I guess the point here is that the working group may be overlooked was that the majority of the approximately 800 single-family houses in the Mara Vista Peninsula are on lots that are less than 7,500 square feet, and now all of those are excluded with the current bylaw as revised last November. And just the background, I think a lot of people know this, but Mara Vista was originally divided into tent lots, 30 feet wide, 80 feet deep, and people would just come and pitch their tents, I guess, in the 40s and 50s. When they started building houses in Mara Vista, they realized those are too small, so the developers combined, for the most part, 3 of those tent lots together. So you got 30, 30, 30 by 80, so it's 90 by 80, 7,200 square feet. And as I mentioned before, you know, the current minimum requirement is 7,500 square feet. So basically, 2/3 of the houses in Mara Vista would not meet this criteria. And Mara Vista is an ideal community. It's all now connected to the sewer. It's walking distance to shops. It's walking distance to Main Street. It's walking distance to the beach. It's kind of the perfect location for accessory apartments. People will be able to live there and not even have a car. They wouldn't have to have a car. So I presented last November. Unfortunately, it was a week after the town meeting where they adopted the 7,500 minimum square foot. And I did put up some drawings, which I'll show you here just very quickly, to show that you can fit, in my case, a garage with an accessory apartment on a lot that's 7,200 square feet. That's my current house. Right over here is where the septic system currently is. Next month, I hook up to the sewer, and this is where the garage would go with the accessory apartment on top. This is the layout. That's the existing house here. That's the site for the garage. It meets all the requirements for accessory apartment, except that this is 80 feet deep, 90 feet wide, 7,200 square feet. That's what it will look like. And just a couple other drawings to show it. So really, it's just that one little clause to amend the bylaw to read the lot size shall be no less than 7,000 square feet. And Mark's, I mean, we didn't know we were each putting in this, this petition article, so that's why they're so similar. It definitely works in Mara Vista. Like on my lot, I could not put in that garage with a septic system. It would not fit on the property.
Right.
So, we can make it so if you're connected to the sewer, then make it 7,000 square feet. But in fact, that almost happens anyway. It's just you can't fit it on a lot. For the most part, if there's a house and there's a septic system and it's 7,200 or 7,000 square feet, it'd be very, very difficult to do. But there could be a few lots in Falmouth where they have a small cottage on the corner with a septic. Maybe it would work. So that's why, whether or not you put in that extra clause about, if you're connected to the sewer. Because now we're connected to the sewer, there's 400 or 500 house lots in Mara Vista that can potentially put in accessory apartments if we change that one number from 7,500 to 7,000. And if you say, why not 7,200? Apparently, some of the lots in Mara Vista, when they were originally surveyed, they might be 7,190 square feet, so you don't want to rule those out, so make it a little bit less than so that's where the number 7,000 came from.
Okay.
Basically, everything that he said, and
Mr. Fenner,
as I
would
said-
you just,
You need to identify yourself, Mark.
Oh, Mark Finneran, Precinct
address?
6.
thank you.
And I've only spoken with John a short amount of time, but basically, I think our plan is to both work on this together. The only thing that he really missed was putting in a sewer service area in his article. Other than that, the idea is the same. The main concern with these accessory apartments, or your main concern, was nitrogen loading, which is a huge concern in this town. But obviously, in a sewer service area, there is going to be no nitrogen loading. And also, this not only would apply here, but it would apply in New Silver Beach, which there are roughly 400 houses there. And beyond Mara Vista, it also applies in Falmouth Heights, the whole Little Pond sewer service area. This is an affordable housing question and an answer, and it addresses that aging in place, which is especially true in these two, Mara Vista and Falmouth Heights. There's a lot of people that have been there forever and are aging. and who planned on putting in an accessory apartment and then found themselves cut out at the last minute. I brought this up, and I tried to amend the article at town meeting last November, but the amendments had been used up because the Rules Committee limits it to 2, whether they pass or not. My answer was basically that 7,500 was an arbitrary number that you just came up with. I think that if we basically use my article instead of his, which limits it only to sewered service areas, there's roughly, I don't know, very close to 20,000 habitable units in this town with single-family houses. There's 724 condos. There's 375 mixed-use units, which I just figured them as 2. So that brings you very close to 20,000. This affects about 1,900 units, which is 9.5%, or close enough to 10% of the units, if you want to call it, for want of a better word, in this town. And I'd also like to point out that, you know, our goal is to hit 10% affordable housing. And I know it's not a popular subject, and I'm famous for not bringing them up, but for bringing them up, not bringing them up. But we're essentially stuck or going backwards addressing the affordable housing in this town because of sober houses, whether you want to hear it or not. I mean,
Not
this.
on our agenda, okay?
It
Please-
doesn't, it's
please-
all related, Jim. I mean, and
not-
this does
Mark,
give us the opportunity to address affordable housing and the living and aging in place issue, which is a big issue in this town. And, you know, as I've said before, and part of the wastewater issue, when we had the hearings, and we still have a wastewater committee, I mean, it was basically said that once a lot is hitched up to the septic, or to the sewer rather, no longer had a septic system, was no longer contributing to the nitrogen loading, they would be able to have an accessory apartment. So I look at this thing as just an oversight. And I think it should be amended and dealt with, and it's a win-win.
okay, I want to comment on it. Worked for many years on the accessory apartment bylaw. and
Oh, I know you have for a
really
long
worked it.
time.
And I was the one that said, do not put a limit on the size, because the septic system and the reserve take up everything you could possibly have, and if it's impossible to fit it. And we ended up having a huge committee, discussion for a whole year, and people were pushing for limitations on it. And I accepted the
Well, they were-
limitation as a compromise.
Well, in effect,
But I agree with, I'm just saying, I've always agreed with your position.
but in effect, Jim, I mean, those people that made that argument, I mean, if you go through the raw numbers, they were 90% correct.
I blew it.
This is 10%. I mean, it's
blew it.
just a
I threw out
small.
the $7,500 number as a compromise to move the thing forward, that's all it was.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm
I look
guilty.
at it as an
I'm
over,
guilty.
honestly, as I said to the selectmen, I looked at the thing as an oversight. I thought that I would drop this article because it would have been addressed by the planning board, but I know you guys got your plate full. I mean, it was demonstrated, and everybody knows that. But I think, just in closing, that we will combine our article and make our presentation, and like I said, the two most important things, or three, it does not contribute to nitrogen loading whatsoever. It addresses the affordable housing issue, and it addresses, more importantly, especially on those two peninsulas, it addresses the aging in place issue. And I think we should move forward and deal with this.
Thank you.
I too am very sympathetic to it. Tom, I know you've done some research on this. What did it turn out the numbers, I'm sure your numbers are right, but I'm curious what the numbers are of owner-occupied lots that will now be affected if this change goes into place.
Well, I did anticipating the question, so I asked Bob Shea, our GIS guy, to identify the lots in the Seward areas, as well as the lots in Mara Vista as non-sewered lots. So presently, and there's two numbers here. One is all the houses, owner occupied or not, because it's not much work to make that change from an owner, non-occupied to an owner-occupied house. You just move in. So when we look at what's in the sewer districts, there are 1,826 lots in the sewer district that are zoned potentially for accessory housing.
And that's all sewer districts.
It's in this, yeah, correct, just all the sewer districts. So, right now, there are 558 that are smaller than 7,000 square feet, so they're not gonna be affected by this. There's an additional 350 lots that would be included between 7,000 and 7,499 square feet. If we look at those that are currently owner-occupied, that currently comply with the bylaw, the change from 7,500 to 7,000 in the sewered lots is about 111 additional lots, if this change was made. When we look at the non-sewered areas in the other article, there's 350 dwellings in all the lots identified there. 173 are smaller than 6,999 square feet. So that change would essentially be 46 for all the lots. For the ones that are owner-occupied, 14. So today, if the bylaw changed and people without moving anywhere could come in, there could be a potential additional 111 lots in the sewered areas and an additional 14 lots in the unsewered areas. That's the delta between 7,500 and 7,000 square feet.
Paul, you have anything? I'm just moving down the line. Pat?
No, I don't.
Just to reiterate what you said, we always felt that the septic systems were gonna be the mitigating factor in whether somebody could do it or not. We didn't wanna put in a whole bunch of regulations and constraints and things like that, because we felt there were enough just in lot coverage and septic and all that, that it would take care of itself, and we were reluctant to put a size limit on the lots, so we're behind this.
We'll keep going, you'll get a chance.
I just want to clarify one thing from the Affordable Housing Committee. These units don't necessarily become part of the housing stock for affordable housing, because you're talking about meeting that 10% limit where there could be no more 40Bs. These are not the kind of units that would, because it has to go through the state, it has to be in perpetuity. So I think it's important that we don't,
Conflate the two.
right.
I understand that, but the end result would be that it will add to the stock, because some of these are gonna be, and there will be people who will move from their house into their
affordable-
apartment.
Right.
And then, I mean, it almost, just, there's a shortage of all housing in this town, you know, so I mean, these
This
things all.
fits our local comprehensive plan where we said we're gonna do housing for everybody. We've already taken that into consideration. That, we understand what Pam said, but by their size alone, they're gonna rent at a price that
Right.
most people can afford. I can't use the label affordable housing and satisfy the cap, but we've already
But it
decided that our goal is housing for everybody, so we're
But
with
it
you.
reduces the
We're with-
demand,
Yes, it
which,
reduces-
which,
That's
which
what
has
we're
an
looking for.
effect.
Yeah,
So you're-
I was using it broadly.
Yeah.
But-
yeah.
And I mean, I understand, and most people that go to town meeting and read the warrant, I mean, there's nothing more confusing on the warrant than a planning article.
Yeah.
I mean, they go on forever.
Yeah.
And they have to. And I mean, you know, this is just a small change, and I think that it's a plus, and we can all come together, just as we'll
We're gonna
Yeah,
keep
we
combine
keep
our
moving.
article.
We're gonna keep moving, okay?
We
John, do you
agree.
have anything?
I just would like to say that when we discussed the smaller lots originally, one of the concerns that the public had was the amount of vehicles that would be on a lot. Mara Vista
Right.
does have the small lots.
Yeah.
And we as a board were able to retain the site review. And we've had quite a few applicants come in, and I think we've gotten really good at controlling the neighborhood and the lots themselves.
Yeah.
So I think there's a good track record there. But I would really prefer to support the 7,000 square feet where the lots are sewered.
Right.
I don't see any reason not to,
Absolutely,
not to support that.
Yeah.
right.
The other lots, I can see where people would have a concern, but I don't want to mix it up at town meeting. If this is going to get approved by town meeting, I think it should be something that is pretty clear-cut in my.
Is that something you could
Oh,
consider?
we've come to that,
So, okay.
even without,
We're
almost
already in
without
agreement
speaking
there.
to
Good,
each
let's
other.
not waste any time.
Nope.
I want to keep moving.
Yep.
I think we're moving in the right direction.
And the one other thing that I'd add is, the owner-occupied thing, I mean, there are certain people that are 6 months a year, and just to move it up to 7 isn't a big deal. And especially if they had the accessory apartment, however they chose to deal with it, I think we can all come to an agreement on
I'd like to
this.
open up to other comment and keep moving if it's okay, Mark.
Absolutely, you're the boss.
Please step up and identify yourself.
Virginia Valiela, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 5. I'm Vice Chair of the Water Quality Management Committee. Good evening to the board. And I am concerned about these two articles. There's a piece of history that has not been disclosed, and that is that the original accessory apartment bylaw, the minimum lot size was 15,000 square feet. That was the starting point. And the accessory bylaw that the planning board brought to the town meeting in spring of 2017, the issue of the lot size was not resolved. The zoning board of appeals.
Wait a second, it passed by town meeting
Yeah,
on a voice vote
understand.
right away. I would say that was a resolution.
But there was no, there was a strong opposition presented by the zoning board of appeals.
Granted, but I want to go on the record, it passed by 2/3 vote on a voice meeting right after the zoning board brought up their issues. The very next thing was called and approved by town meeting, done. I wouldn't say it was unresolved. I thought 2/3 was a resolution.
The matter of a minimum lot size was an outstanding issue.
Not
So.
to me, it wasn't.
Oh, okay, right. But, so the result is that the following year, there was a working group set up. Pat Kerfoot was on it, and I was on it. And we went through a number of issues to be amended to the bylaw that had just been passed by town meeting. And so the compromise for the lot size issue was 7,500, half of 15,000. That was the compromise. And so to now try and readjust the compromise doesn't seem quite fair. The Water Quality Committee felt that the lot size should be 10,000. We think 7,500 is still rather crowded for these lots, but we agreed to 7,500. We would certainly not support Mr. Banner's article, which is townwide. Mr. Finneran's article is better because it's limited to lots in the sewer area, and it sounds like the discussion here is definitely going in that direction. I still think that 7,000 is pretty small, and I think that if you put the pieces, the house, the garage, the cars, and the activity of two families, basically, onto that one parcel, that it looks crowded. So I personally am going to vote against 7,000. I do think it should be on the record that the compromise that was negotiated was 7,500. And so this article is basically going backwards on that, and I don't think it's fair.
I have a question for you. Do you have any concern about the nitrogen loading of this impact in the sewer system?
You have to remember that in the Seward area, there is a limit of 4 bedrooms. So if you're on a lot that already has 4 bedrooms, you can't add an accessory apartment. So it will only be for houses that have 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms. So that is an additional limitation that the nitrogen flow from the Seward area has been calculated specifically for that number of bedrooms.
Was that a yes or a no to my question?
Uh, It's a no because there's an additional restriction, which I've just listed, which is no more than 4 bedrooms.
Because in practice, what typically happens, they reduce a bedroom in the house if they really want to have it. If they're lucky enough to have 4,
Sure.
they change the main house to 3 and call one in the 400 square foot accessory apartment, and everything equals out. And that was the intent.
That's okay.
Okay,
That's
that's what
okay.
I want to make sure.
Yep.
So you're okay with that? They keep them at 4?
Well, that's.
It has to be, it's limited
It
to
has
4
to be
anyway.
4. It's not,
And that's what's happening down there. People are
that's what's
tearing them
hap-
down and they're building 2-story houses
yes,
now. with
right,
4 bedrooms.
exactly, with 4 bedrooms,
Right.
exactly. So if they want an accessory, they've got to reduce another bedroom.
We see that all the time, with people come with accessories,
they do.
they're changing the main house, because they really don't need the extra bedroom, they want to have the 2 dwellings for a family member, or a friend, or anything, and so it's accommodating.
Right, okay, thank you, that's,
Sir, a question?
sure.
Go ahead, John.
Ask you a question?
sure.
Because I don't know the answer, and maybe you don't either, but say a typical home in Mara Vista, do you know what the fee was for them to hook up to the sewer? And any idea?
I don't personally, no. I've had no experience
plenty
with
of
that.
people that do.
There are other people who,
$16,000, give or take
are you talking about the betterment? Or, no, are you talking?
Betterment 16.
No, it came down, it's 13 and a half.
That's-
But then the connection is about 5,000.
Depending.
21 is the number I've heard, yeah.
So that's 20, yeah.
So that's the two-
maybe around $20,000 total for
Yeah.
the fee to hook, for the town and the betterment.
And the betterment.
And then the actual fee for the plumber and the excavator. Okay,
It's about 5,000.
all right, thank you. So, can I comment on that? So, when we discussed this article originally, I wasn't here originally, but when I was on the board, we were discussing it. We were concerned about what it was gonna cost people, and we felt that Mara Vista, as a board, we felt that the Mara Vista area in particular would benefit by having an accessory apartment bylaw available to them to help pay for some of these, the fees that they're gonna incur. Excuse me. And it's like a side, but I own a commercial building that is on Main Street, and I'm hooking up to it. So my fee to the town is $67,000.
It's several units, I'm sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then of course, I have to do the work inside the building, and then, so I'm gonna be close to $100,000. I don't get to charge more rent, but for the Mara Vista people, this may be an opportunity, if it gets passed by town meeting, for them to recover some of these expenses that they've incurred for the betterment of the town.
Understand.
So,
Right.
so hopefully you would reconsider, and maybe support if they're already hooked up to the sewer.
Okay.
So, that's
Appreciate
my
it.
comments.
I'll cycle back with all the board members after I get all the public comment. Please step up and identify yourself.
Jerry Patamas, Precinct 2, former wastewater superintendent. Regarding the in excess of 4 bedrooms, if the wastewater superintendent says there's capacity and the Board of Selectmen approve a variance because of available capacity or priority, a 5th bedroom can go in. In fact, state law says if you have a utility going in front of your property, like a sewer system, you can't deny it unless there's no capacity in the sewer system. That was brought up in the Helmers Circle, where people complained that there was more capacity for that development than was allowed. But there was capacity, and the wastewater superintendent verified that was that capacity, and I think the Board of Selectmen approved it. So I think we have to be careful when we put total limits. Now, I know a lot of you might not understand this, but I probably do half my thinking nowadays on wastewater capacity and the need to try to be explicit on, and obviously, you can't exceed the wastewater treatment plant capacity. And 1 bedroom at a time is going to be very, very, or 2 bedrooms, difficult to exceed that capacity. But we're rapidly approaching it with all the development. Thank you.
Just to be clear, our accessory apartment pretty much limits it at 4 bedrooms.
Right.
You know, so,
Unless they can tie into the sewer.
no,
No.
no,
That's if
ours
they're already
says,
tied
it doesn't
into the
say
sewer.
unless. You're adding that language, it's not in our bylaw.
Okay, I will.
So you might, your language is probably accurate, but it's not in our bylaw. That might be a state law, but our bylaw is limited to 4.
I
as a
guess I
bylaw.
would say, does the town regulations go over the bylaw as far as capacity? I don't think you could subsume the
I don't
state
know the answer to
regulation.
that question. We would need Mr. Duffy or somebody else.
I would think you should ask him. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, circling back to the board, Charlotte.
Procedural question, do we vote to support a petitioner's article, or do we just let it go, or how does that work?
Yes, we have to either, we voted either in favor or indefinite postponement. That's the two choices. Actually, if we don't like it, we vote indefinite postponement. If not, we vote in the affirmative.
We can also vote an amendment to it.
And we can also amend it. Paul, you have a question.
Yeah, I just had a question. We've been concentrating our effort on, excuse me, on Little Pond Sewer area. Would it be appropriate to limit the reduction in size to that specific area and evaluate how effective that is before we do it townwide?
What's the difference? Is there something unique to Little Pond that,
Well, maybe
Silver Beach.
nobody will sign up. I mean, we're saying all these possibilities, but I don't know how many people are gonna take advantage of that.
It doesn't matter how many. I mean, if you're going to have a rule, it should be applied uniformly. If it's too,
But it could be limited to a particular area if you wanted to.
our housing
Wanted
goal,
to, but
our
why would you
housing
want
goal,
to?
when we did the local comprehensive plan, and we set up action items to pass the accessory apartment bylaw, it was for the whole town. It was never, ever considered to be limited, and that policy and goals were approved by town meeting.
But now we're saying we can, if you lower this, it's specific for areas that are on the sewers.
Well, that's what we're saying tonight, yeah, just the sewer, which would include the North Falmouth area. You good?
North Falmouth.
I'm good.
Okay, I'm
Mark
just-
has a comment.
wouldn't we have to be careful of the language, because we don't want the limitation of sewering to apply to all the lots in town. We want it to apply to these smaller lots, the lots between 7,000 and 7,500. So don't we need to see exactly the language that it's going to be, so that it doesn't, the sewering requirement doesn't spread out onto the other larger lots by accident?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, let's look at the language. We don't have the exact language that the two men are going to come up with when they combine their,
Well, I think they're gonna say it has to be on the sewer.
On the sewer.
yes, but we don't want all the accessory apartments to have to be on the sewer, do we?
No, but they're gonna have to have more than 7,000 square feet.
Then we should be sure that it says that.
We're gonna have to, this is why I pointed out to Jim that we can amend it, because they want to bring the two together, so one or the
Bring
other
them
will have
together.
to be rewritten.
We want it to cover from 7,000 to 7,500 square feet. Those lots may have an accessory apartment if they're on a sewer. So it applies just to those lots. Is that your intention?
Mark?
Kind of point of order. Excuse me. Would it make it easier for you to address your business tonight if Mr. Banner would withdraw his article now and we would agree to work together on my article with my wording?
Can't do that.
Can't do it.
Can't do it. Okay, well,
It's already
that's-
published.
That's what we're
So
gonna
what we can do is, though,
assume that?
no, we could.
They can withdraw
We could
their article.
indefinitely postpone one
Yeah, IP,
and
yeah.
recommend the other. And then it might,
Okay,
They
'cause
can-
we
they
will
can
work
withdraw it.
together anyway.
Tom, is that the
Yeah.
right process?
I would think so.
So one of you will be indefinitely postponed, and if we're all in favor of it, the other one will.
Can't they withdraw it?
22.
Can't-
No,
No, it's
No.
already printed.
Yeah,
No, we can just,
it has to be IP.
yeah.
It has to be IP. IP is the solution.
Yeah.
Fine.
That's town meeting talk for indefinite postponement for the rest of you.
and I think we're probably gonna be working with Mr. Banners. The
Okay.
lot shall be no less than 7,000 square feet in sewered areas.
In sewered areas, right?
And then So that
Right, but
clause
that's-
just is added
So,
to Mr. Banner's.
so if we would amend Mr. Banner's just adding the in-sewered areas to it, that would solve both issues. Don't- Yeah, but
Right.
one we're gonna indefinitely postpone, and the other one we're gonna vote in favor of.
Postpone 23 and 22
Whatever, however, we're gonna,
Okay.
however it's gonna work out better.
So everyone's all set?
Yeah.
Could you please read the language as you just think you have it?
What I have from Mr. Banners is to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw sections 240-23, 3B, and section 240-38, 3B of the Code of Falmouth accessory apartments by deleting 7,500 square feet and inserting in its place 7,000 square feet, thereby changing section 240. Both of them would have to be reworked, no matter what we did.
They would, but I think that we should know that we're saying that if it's going to be less than 7,500, between 7,000 square feet and 7,499, it must be in a sewered area.
Yes.
So that we limit it to that.
Right. So,
We're not gonna be deleting 7,500 square feet.
No, we're adding,
We're adding the
that language.
7,000 in a sewered area.
Oh, wait a minute.
7,074.99.
Should it just read,
Should be no less than 7,000 square
should-
feet.
accessory apartments by deleting 7,500 square feet and inserting in its place 7,000 square feet, thereby changing section 240 to 23I3B and section 240 38I3B to read as, the lot size shall be no less than 7,000 square feet in the sewered areas. Is that,
Except we still wanna keep 7,500 in unsewered areas.
Right. What we're talking about here is making sure that lots that are larger than 75,
Okay.
that 7,500 and above aren't affected by what we're doing right now.
yeah.
We want to restrict this to talk about only lots that are 7,000 square feet up to 7,500 square feet, must be in a sewered area to be eligible for an accessory apartment.
Tom, do we have to vote on this language tonight, or do you have?
Absolutely not, and I wouldn't recommend voting.
No,
on it.
I
No,
would-
but you can revise the language and bring it forward.
The board can make a recommendation. And this is the thing about a petitioned article. When you make a petitioned article, the board doesn't get to change the article. You can recommend changes to the article, but you don't get to change the article. So if the applicant wants to put something together and come back to clarify any of these questions, and they want to submit something that, much like in last town meeting, when the folks at Lawrence Lynch said they weren't going to move their article and send us something in print, that kind of clears things up. So let's continue it for 2 weeks. Let's make sure we're got our pins underneath of us on this.
Okay.
Get a letter in that says, the petitioner for 22, Mr. Banner, I believe it is, would request not moving my article.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Makes it pretty
Good?
clear.
But can the two petitioners work with the planning office to get it squared?
I'll work with anybody.
Worded correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, he works with us, so he'll work with anybody.
Who knows?
Absolutely.
Well, obviously, you hear some support for this. We'll move it in 2 weeks. We'll
So
see
Article 22 and Article 23
We're
will
gonna take it
continue for
under-
2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're gonna close the hearing on it and take it under advisement.
advisement. But we still got to deal with the enhanced, which is,
Yeah, no, we're closing the
That's a s-
discussion
that's a
on
separate-
Article 23 and Article 22
right.
hearings and taking them under advisement, so we need a motion to that effect, folks, and I guess I'll move it.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, we're going to deal with the deletion of the word enhanced from the,
Well, I'm Jerry Patamas, 13 Danvers Ave, town meeting member. And I'm a member of the zoning board of appeals. Don't hold that against me, but I'm here as an individual. In the meantime, I'm asking Tom, the planner, to look up the accessory apartment bylaw, because I think, oh, there it is. I think you'll see on this slide, this is what was approved. You know, I took out some of the filler, but it's clear. In excess of 4 bedrooms may convert to, okay? properties in the coastal pond overlay district, those are impaired waterways, that want to increase beyond the density outlined, and I took out all the verbiage, basically, it's in the above, can only do so provided both the principal dwelling and accessory apartment are connected to the municipal sewer. So I will assert that by your bylaw, they can do it. However, they need to get approval from the wastewater superintendent and the planning board, in the selectmen. And if you don't have that language in front of you tonight, and if the town planner cannot pull it up, I would ask that before you rule on this, you make sure you understand the accessory bylaw. The second part says an on-site system with enhanced nitrogen removal approved by the Board of Health is installed on the property. That's essentially what was in the existing bylaw. That was actually, I'll go to the next slide. Okay. My amendment is to, whoops, how do I go backwards? To eliminate the term enhanced, to say that an on-site septic system with nitrogen removal approved by the Board of Health is installed on the property. Now, it's not to beat it to death, but there was extensive discussions. At a joint meeting with the ZBA and the planning board, the members there had a consensus to approve this language. When it got to the working group, it went sideways. In other words, they did not support it, and the ZBA, my fellow ZBA member on the board, didn't approve it. And when I asked him afterwards, he essentially said what you said, Mr. Fox. There were so many compromises, he didn't think this was worth the battle to get it in front of you. So, yes, and this was not discussed by the planning board. I don't know if you remember discussing it. I think I might have sent something, and it might have just, you didn't want to go beyond the, what the working group proposed. This is the coastal, oh, wait a minute. Can I get this is the coastal overlay districts, okay? This is going to become important. See where that blue line is? That's Oyster Pond. That's probably one of the smaller watersheds. It has something like 7 million or 700 million liters of water in it. Remember that for the next discussion point. To keep up with the spirit of the bylaw, we want to be fair, and you could read it, to the elderly, the moderately income, and the younger homeowners applying for accessory apartments. No place else in the coastal pond overlay is there a requirement that limits anybody else to put in an enhanced system if they want to put 5 bedrooms in. If you want to put an accessory apartment in and you want to put 5 bedrooms in, you can. You're not required to put an enhanced system in. And I will assert that, and you can also have your planner get back to you. So in some respects, this bylaw is discriminatory and works against the intent of the bylaw itself. This avoids those same people having to spend $20,000 to $30,000, that might be adjusted for capital costs plus another $1,000 O&M. Again, it helps the people that want to put, and I'll say moderately or market-based housing. It's not affordable, but some of these units are clearly going to be rented by people that, I don't know, but it's going to lessen the housing burden. Based on Title V regulations, it's going to take 3 to 5 years for the town to develop a state-approved definition of the term enhanced. That's because you need 50 systems. Let's say it's the layer cake system. You don't have to care what system it is, okay? In operation for 3 to 5 years with a certain performance standard, and then the state will approve it. Well, you could say, that's a long time. We should be able to have some control in the meantime. And that's a fairly reasonable argument. But the Board of Health, or maybe even the Water Quality Management Committee, can come up with their definition and put it in front of town meeting if they want. But it's going to take a while, and the definition of enhanced is more complicated than I thought, because in a recent discussion with a Board of Health member and the health agent, he advised me that simply by taking out the word enhanced doesn't allow the Board of Health to put a normal system in. So I might have to revise that language. I have to research it. I would think if the language went back to say what I had said, which is a nitrogen removal system, the Board of Health would have discretion based on the facts that come in front of them. I will defer to the Board of Health if they think that language would still require an INA system. The next thing, this is environmentally sustainable. The number you see, oh, there's a decimal point off. That should be 0 point. That is the dilution of 1 bedroom, 2 people, going into Oyster Pond, okay? You can't measure that. No one can measure that. You could have rampant accessory apartment bylaws. You could have 10 in each watershed and not even come close. That's a couple of thousand or more times less than the detection limit, okay? So this is environmentally sustainable. And in the end, it also allows the Board of Health to approve watershed-specific performance standards when necessary. So this is, we have the safeguard by the local Board of Health that's doing due diligence, and also with the Water Quality Committee that will come up with future regulations or proposed regulations for town meeting. But in the meantime, why are we discriminating against people that want to put 1 bedroom in, and it's not going to have any impact on the water quality in those impacted coastal pond overlays? Again, if you want to see that, these are all the watersheds. Some of them are pretty big. If the one with the blue line, Oyster Pond, I can get to that dilution. Now, that's assuming it's clean, okay? We all know it's not clean. But if you can't measure that increment, you can't measure it. Now, as a regulator, I would, when I was doing permitting, would always say the glass is full. You can't put any more stuff in the glass because the glass is full. That's absolutely right. But this gets into the neighborhood of de minimis limits. You can't measure it. No regulatory agency is going to take you to task over that. In fact, if you're meeting the water quality standards for the pond of water in question, they won't care if 1 or 2 homes go over the nitrogen limit. By that same token, I would assume the Water Quality Committee is going to overplan where they put septic tanks in INA systems, because they are variable. And if you needed 100 systems to meet water quality, they're probably going to recommend 125, 150, due to the variability of nitrogen systems. So that's why I think, when you think of this, I think you should vote a positive amendment to this, and if you need the town planner to go back and verify the language that I had up here, I think it's minuscule, but it may be important for clarification as to what can be expanded in the sewer service area. I'll take the questions.
I have 2 questions, things you said. Early in your talk, you mentioned a role that the selectmen have.
Yes.
In this. Where is that?
I'm sorry, that was, the selectmen have a role in approving tie-ins to the sewer system in excess of 4 bedrooms. Because the flow-neutral bylaw says you can only have 4 bedrooms.
And what about the rule that I thought the only way you could have 4 bedrooms if you had 10,000 square feet per bedroom?
That's a septic tank.
I thought that was the cap.
That is a Title V septic tank. It doesn't impact sewers. Sewers are designed
No,
differently.
but I'm saying for somebody putting bedrooms, and then, for this article's,
What are we talking about? Sewers, I
we're
prefer to
talking
just
about the
talk about.
accessory apartment bylaws,
Okay.
what we're talking about.
Okay.
And you mentioned something about the selectmen's role in approving it, and I
No,
got
they
confused.
they only have role if you're tying into the sewer. They have no role in this, unless they come up with a policy.
What about, what about the 10,000 square feet per bedroom? I thought that's a town-wide issue. Doesn't
That's-
that cover this same issue?
It could cover it, but I go to this, and this is language right out of your, properties in a coastal pond overlay that want to increase beyond the density in blah, 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 can only do so provided, and, forget about item 1, because that's the sewer system. Item 2 says, an on-site septic system with enhanced nitrogen removal is approved by the Board of Health. I guess you could say it would be up to the Board of Health, and I don't want to speak to them, for them.
But you said there was a selectman, I'm just confused.
The
with
select, okay,
I got confused with
okay.
that issue.
Okay, take a step back. The selectmen approve over 4 bedrooms tying in to the sewer service area, not for accessory apartments.
All right.
I am sorry.
That's what gave me the confusion. Okay, now I got you. I'm
Okay.
with you. Bob, you have something?
Yeah, I never realized that enhanced was the title of a system.
It isn't.
Well-
Enhanced is a term that was,
Let-
I'm sorry.
Let me finish, because the way I used it or thought of it is, that was in there to encompass any new and emerging nitrogen removal systems. I didn't realize that it was something that the state was trying to come up with a definition for.
No, state is not. The town is. The state has a clear definition of innovative and alternative. The term enhance was developed by the people proposing this article. I think it might have been a compromise. I don't
Yeah, so
I
that's
don't
where
know.
the confusion
So
came in.
enhance is strictly in your hands. INA is strictly in the Board of Health hands. I mean, if you took out enhanced, okay?
Yeah.
And you said a nitrogen removal system, I think I'll probably take out enhanced nitrogen to make it clearer that it's clearly in the Board of Health hands.
Yeah,
Okay? Did I answer your question?
yeah.
Because that was already, we always were looking, this is a Board of Health issue, not
Yeah.
our issue, let them deal with it. That's always been our position.
It should be for
Yeah.
nitrogen.
And we didn't
Yeah.
realize the word enhanced compromised you at all. I mean, that's,
Well, I think, like I said, you had a lot on your plate. I got to buy you a portion of yous once. I got shut down at the overview committee, the bylaw committee. And I don't probably think it was discussed. You probably said, we went through enough. We got consensus with the working group. I probably wasn't there. That's another reason why I'm bringing it back, because if you remember at last town meeting, there were 2 speakers. John Waterbury spoke somewhat to it, I think, and Virginia's in the, and she spoke about, I don't think she addressed it, she just said, in fact, I'll let her speak, but I mean, it wasn't a lot of discussion, but it didn't pass, okay? I'm hoping this year, with a little bit more discussion, a better presentation by me, a better presentation of the facts, okay? That this is not going to do anything, because right now, this would be in the hands of the Board of Health, where it should be.
See, I almost looked at this as just a housekeeping issue.
so your only thing is remove the word enhanced and you're happy.
Yes, I might say
That's a much
enhanced
clearer way
nitrogen.
to have this conversation than all the other stuff we just talked about.
Yeah,
Well, I had to bring you up to my level of knowledge.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think that's gonna be a problem at town meeting. I think it's much more simpler to just
Yeah,
Okay,
Just
thank
deal
you.
with the wording.
Yeah, just-
Because your arguments may be in detail, but I started losing you on some of the things. All you need to do is remove the word enhanced, and you're okay.
You wouldn't recommend trying to defend why we want to remove the word enhanced?
And the way
I
I
mean-
always felt, I just wanted to defer to the Board of Health and just move on, and it's always been my opinion. I
Yeah.
don't know if everyone else feels that way, but that's
It's always been in
that's
Board of
always been
Health.
I don't think we have an argument with you. We're talking about
Yeah.
words.
I mean, I will defer to you, and I'd hope you would defer that this is housekeeping and vote to approve it tonight.
Is
Well,
there-
we won't vote, but we'll get it revised and bring it up the next meeting. Take it under advisement and see the language change and
I could, if you want, I could submit the new language, which
Yeah.
I already know is gonna say,
Yeah.
Oh, my
that will say,
I don't know what hit my nose. The reason I think that we put enhanced in there and kept it in there is because we wanted to encourage advancing
That's right,
technology to
that's-
be
that's-
used. We just
Yeah,
didn't want,
Yeah.
we meant enhanced is better than.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you've turned it into what's gonna take 3 years to define the word enhanced.
it's not me, the
Yeah.
Board of
Why,
Health.
no.
It's INA system. I mean, it's the Title V.
Our mistake.
No, it's, I live this, you know what, every day, or I did.
Yeah.
It's clear that,
So-
so I can come back, or I will agree to say an on-site septic system approved by the Board of Health is installed. That takes all the vagity out of it. It puts it entirely in the hands of the Board of Health.
Good?
No,
No? Go ahead.
Should the others speak?
nitrogen should not be removed because you can just put a septic system in there of any sort. We want nitrogen removal for that to be in there. And the reason we put enhanced in there is to make it stronger.
But you're putting enhanced in, okay? For a small segment. The people that
We're
want to
agreeing
put
to
in,
take the word enhanced out.
yes. But I've been advised by the Board of Health.
But leaving nitrogen removal
leave it
in.
nit removal.
I've been advised by the Board of Health, George Hoyfelter, to be specific, that he's not sure about the word nitrogen removal. In fact, I went down and spoke to them, because I would assert that a normal septic tank, and George can verify, removes 20 to 40% of nitrogen. This is in the literature, okay? But that wasn't the intent, okay? So I think you're confusing the item. I don't know where you're coming from, if I can be honest with you, because it still has to be approved by the Board of Health, and it still can't violate anything. So we're talking about accessory apartments, something we always want. We're talking about a small number. I showed you what the number of nitrogen is coming from one accessory apartment, okay?
Yeah.
How many do you think you have to put in to come even close to the detection limit? I don't think I'm convincing Pat,
You
but
are
I,
not convincing me, no.
well, I mean, if I
Because
could,
the whole burden on our estuaries is nitrogen.
but if
That
you,
is why we cannot take that term out of there.
well, I guess I beg to differ, because I would say it's up to the Board of Health to determine what nitrogen is. I'm saying that that's not gonna mean anything. I mean, I respect your opinion, but I'm saying why, this is an accessory apartment bylaw. If it was a nutrient management bylaw, we should have this discussion. I think this got merged into the accessory apartment bylaw because of confusion. I appreciate what you're saying. You could have the town planner check with the Board of Health, and he could come back and say, do they think that term is meaningful to them?
Okay.
It would be up here.
Tom,
If I,
please.
if I may, I actually forwarded Mr. Thomas's article to Scott McGann, our health agent. And he sent back an email that I think we've shared with the board and with Mr. Thomas. It says basically, the term enhanced doesn't change anything. Removing the term enhanced doesn't change anything. It still requires a nitrogen removal system. So if your goal is to remove the nitrogen component of that, enhanced isn't the word that has to go. Nitrogen has to be the word that it goes. And I don't know that anyone's supporting that necessarily, but essentially Scott McGann said, and I think Mr. Thomas has an appointment with the Board of Health to have this discussion with them, that removing the word enhance doesn't affect the bylaw whatsoever, because Scott McGann described it as an adjective.
I met with them, I met with them beforehand last night, and I think, and you could please verify this with the Board of Health, that the term enhanced nitrogen doesn't mean anything. It's just a system approved by the Board of Health, where it should be, okay? The Board of Health can look at things, and they can look at the facts. They have broad authority, and they could simply say, we think this watershed is overloaded, or that. So that doesn't get anything in there, according to Scott and Judge Hoyfelter that I talked to last night, Monday night, just before the board. And I would ask that you allow Tom to clarify that, because I think Patricia, Ms. Kerfoot, has a concern. I'm not convincing her, but I hope she'll keep her mind open to what the regulatory definition is, not what you or I think it should be. This is a zoning article. It's not a nitrogen article. I mean, it is a nitrogen article, but this is for accessory
So,
apartments.
Let's see if we can move on. We need to consult with the Board of Health and come back with new language to amend this article, if that's what we want to do.
I haven't heard anything new from the Board of Health. The meeting was last night?
Yes, I talked with, because they didn't want to talk outside the board.
So can we continue this till we get information from the Board of Health?
I
'Cause we
would-
seem to be going around in a circle here. in
I
this
would
conversation.
welcome that we continue this with a Board of Health representative present. So it's not I said, he said. Or,
Well, we'll get it from them in writing.
well, that's even better.
We like writing.
We like writing.
I like writing
Because
too.
right now, Jerry, I'm confused.
Well, I won't say something. You should be confused, because it's complicated. All we're saying is, removing the word nitrogen doesn't mean anything, because the safeguards are with the Board of Health.
Right. I thought if we
And
put
the
it
Water
with the
Quality
Board of Health,
Management Committee.
we took care of all issues. That's all I ever wanted to do. And these languages were added by other groups as an amendment, so.
Well, that's why, go back to your roots. This is zoning. I think zoning should deal with zoning.
Does anybody else need to talk about this? Yes, please. I want to keep moving.
Well, Virginia Valiela, Precinct 5, Water Quality Committee. I was also at the Board of Health meeting last night. You've heard an awful lot of confusing information this evening. This article was not on the agenda. Mr. Patamas made a few statements before the board at the very beginning of their meeting, and that was it. Was not discussed in any substantive way. That's my first comment. The second is that the working group that was set up, that was met for 4 or 5 months a year ago, went through all of the issues for amending the accessory bylaw. This was one of them, was Mr. Patamas's particular concern. We held a special meeting just to discuss his concern, and no one felt that the wording should be changed. It should be left just the way it is now. One person abstained. We then came to town meeting. He made his presentation again. 108 people voted against it, and 89 voted yes. This is a zoning bylaw that needs a 2/3 vote, okay? He couldn't even get a majority when he made the same presentation to town meeting in November. So now we're discussing it again. In my opinion, you should leave the language the way it was. It was your original language. Everybody has agreed to it. This is just his issue. He has a lot of reasons for it, but they're sort of all over the map. The matter of the concentration of one particular accessory apartment or 10 accessory apartments, that's not the issue. The town has 14 estuaries that are impaired. There are standards for water quality for all of those 14 estuaries. The issue is when you increase the additional nitrogen beyond which the standard has been set. If a person wants to have an accessory apartment and delete a bedroom and replace it with another bedroom, this is not an issue. It's only when you want to add flow, you want to increase the nitrogen loading. That's the only time this thing gets triggered. And it's a choice. You're making a discretionary business decision, family decision, that you want to increase the flow on your property. And at that time, various rules come with it. This is one of them. You should leave it alone. It makes sense now. And everything else you've heard tonight, it just really confuses people. Thank you.
Clarification.
All right, Jerry, I'm going to move on. You got to speak a real lot. I'm going to see, is
She
anyone?
said something that was wrong.
I know, but we're not going to debate it. We're listening. We've heard both sides. We don't have to say we agree. We're gonna talk about it again another night. I just want to,
okay.
I want to keep moving.
Okay.
We've been going around in this circle. I just want to keep, anybody else that needs to talk on this issue? Okay, we're going to have, Tom will bring this up with,
We're continuing Article 21 till March 12th.
We're continuing it, or should we close?
No, continue.
Continue, okay.
Yep. Okay. Wow.
Article 25 is where we're at, site design, solar consideration.
24-111, site design considers solar orientation. For the applicant.
Hi, Dan Webb, Precinct 6. I had submitted a brief PowerPoint. If we could load that up. All right, let's click on that. Just advance with the arrows. All right, terrific. Thank you. The purpose of Article 25 is to amend the zoning bylaws to support and facilitate, not to mandate, the adoption of solar energy as a part of the planning board's site plan review criteria. Here's the text of the article. It would add one new criteria to the existing 8 criteria in the performance requirements, and we'll take a closer look at that. But that is simply the text of the article. This article is consistent with existing town policies. The local comprehensive plan energy element that was adopted by town meeting in April of 2013 includes this public policy statement. Public policy will strongly support the use of appropriate renewable energy sources. And if you look at that local comprehensive plan, it has an action item that specifically calls for revision of the site plan review zoning bylaws related to solar. So this article has a history there in that approved plan. I'm sure the board is very familiar with this material. The current site plan review criteria is based on a number of different articles in the bylaw. We'll be looking at the performance requirements that are in Article 23. Here are the existing performance requirements. It's continued on a second slide. A lot of people that I've spoken with have really struggled to understand the language of this first paragraph. Of course, this is all the existing bylaw that we're looking at, not the proposed change. The way I explain this to people, I know the board understands this, but I think a lot of people in the public struggle to understand what this means. It's basically these criteria, A through H, in the existing requirements. These are attributes that a good design should include. For instance, a good design would reduce removal of trees over 4-inch trunk diameter. A good design would reduce the volume of cut and fill, reduce soil erosion, improve adequacy of water supply, et cetera. So these are all attributes that you're looking to see in a good design. So this would add an additional attribute shown in red, item I, improve the collection of solar energy by photovoltaic and/or hot water systems. And in explaining this article to people, I've tried to emphasize, this would not mandate the use of solar, just as the existing, let's say, existing item E, reduce removal of trees. That doesn't mean that no trees can ever be removed in a project. It means that removal of trees should be done in a way that's thoughtful, that's optimized. Item F doesn't mean that you could never have cut or fill, but it means that reduction of cut or fill is an attribute that should be optimized. Likewise, the proposed item I doesn't mean you have to install solar, but it means that a good design would be thoughtful in terms of improving the collection of solar energy. Maybe the person who originally builds a structure might not even add solar panels. Maybe years down the road, a later owner would take advantage of that design attribute in order to have an improved harvesting of solar energy. So I feel that item I is consistent with the language of the existing 8 requirements, A through H. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Bob?
I think it's a great place to add that, because, you might have heard my comment earlier about
I
the
did.
project on Main Street, where we're promoting buildings being up to the front of the lot. The back of the lots would make great ground-mounted arrays. I talked about orientating the roof, and those are things that developers should take into consideration, because they do pay for themselves a lot quicker now than they did in the past. So
Yes.
I think it's a good way for us to also have some input into where they go and how they look.
I
Thank
have
you.
some concern because of the issue of lot coverage ratio. That it's been presented that planning board has no right to regulate lot coverage ratio and solar at all. That was brought up at town meeting, yet the very next article, we proposed huge regulations to solar with huge setbacks and everything. So I have no problem with it if it comports with not setbacks, all the setbacks and all other zoning, including lot coverage. I think it's a great bylaw, but I'm a little bit worried about this coming back at us for the same reason, say, oh, we could put these anywhere. And I think they're graded parking lots at back of buildings. They can go in front of buildings if they cover the lot coverage, but I'm not comfortable myself putting them anywhere. And if this, if this opens that up more, I'd be opposed to it unless it stayed within the existing bylaw of setbacks and lot coverage.
This article makes no mention of lot coverage or setbacks, as you can see.
Okay? Anybody else?
Jim?
Charlotte?
I don't know that much about solar energy. It looks like a really good thing to me. But I wonder if by limiting it to photovoltaic and/or hot water systems, that would have an effect. Are there other ways to do that would be?
Does hot water even work anymore? Are people still doing it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a valid point that maybe someday there will be some other technologies, but as of today, photovoltaic and hot water are really the existing technologies used to harvest solar energy. Primarily photovoltaic, but there's some hot water.
John, you good?
I'm reading the bylaw and it has the word shall in here, and I just don't know how to interpret that for all these other points here. Shall says it, shall means it has to have it. And I'm just trying to understand it.
Everybody I've spoken to has struggled to understand the language of the existing bylaw, the first paragraph. For that reason, I bold-faced what I think are the key words in the first paragraph, so you can read it that based on the bold-facing, new building construction shall be so designed that the design could not be reasonably altered to. So and you would know better than, a lot better than I do, but I think what this is basically saying is your design should be reasonably optimized to do the following. Make sense?
I just want to study it a little bit more. I really want to understand it. I don't want to impose this on someone as something they have to do. I just want to read this and understand it.
Pat?
I'm gonna be just a titch picky here, because when you say improve, that means that something already exists. In my understanding of it, I would rather see the word encourage instead of improve. So this shall encourage the collection of solar energy.
I used the word improve because it's used in existing item D. And A, and I was trying to really mimic the language of the existing bylaw, terms like improve, reduce. They're a bit vague, but I was mimicking that existing grammar of the existing bylaw.
The reason I say encourage is because those other things already exist when you're talking about water supply, lighting. So I'm assuming, perhaps incorrectly so, that you would like to see more and more solar energy. And that's why I would say encourage. But it's picky, and we don't,
See, and improve
Well-
doesn't mandate it. Some of the things you can't improve.
But it says the design could not be reasonably altered to. Would you say a design could not be reasonably altered to encourage? I think based on the existing grammar and the multiple use of improve, anyways, that's where it came
okay
from.
with it.
Improve.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think improve
Yeah,
is
because
the-
it could be as simple as reorientating the roof to improve that.
Thank you,
So-
Bob, you're right.
I think that's the
That's
kind of outcome that this is
Right.
intended to lead to, is orientation of the roof, shading.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it. So,
Just want to say,
yeah, show
he's
it.
pointed out something that ought to come to the attention of the zoning code rewrite group to change the language that introduces A through H and perhaps I. It's a double negative. It's really stupid.
It's a very tough paragraph.
So what do we got here? What are we doing?
I think we should encourage it. We should vote to approve it.
Well, we don't normally do that tonight, so we'll close the hearing, take it under advisement, and vote it at the next meeting.
I
So
don't hear
moved.
any real opposition here.
No.
I love it,
So
actually.
you've moved it, and I'll second it.
Everybody,
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay,
A 2-minute break?
yes, if we don't mind, we'll have a 2-minute recess.
Oh,
like to get going again?
College. What are the chances?
Yeah.
Okay,
So we're on what article?
John's coming back.
240-13, definition substance
Yes.
abuse clinics.
Yes.
240-48, business districts. 240-54, permanent business, commercial, and industrial uses.
We did 25, so we're on
So these are
article.
two separate articles,
We're
Tom?
on Article 24.
Pardon me, I was just finishing up with Mr. Banner.
Okay,
We're on Article 24.
we're,
Okay, Article 24, Substance Abuse Clinic. This is one article.
okay,
That
and then the
article-
medical marijuana is a different one.
That's correct.
Okay. So, could we hear from the proponent for this article, please?
That would be on the request of Michael Hayland.
Okay, not here.
Okay?
Has he been here tonight?
Any discussion from the board members on this? Any discussion from the public? What's the pleasure of the board here? IP?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need a motion in a second, I want to keep moving.
That we indefinitely postpone this article,
I'll second.
considering that the proponent isn't here to discuss it.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, on to the next one. Thank God. 240-250, medical marijuana dispensaries to comply with state regulations. Tom, as I understand it, this is just to remove a couple of or you're gonna present? Okay, good. Three things.
I've got it, this is yours.
Right. So as we discussed about a month ago, there were some changes in the state regulation for medical marijuana. We had a hearing previously just to change the definition, and at that time, we had talked about what those other differences were, essentially by the regulation, the administration of medical marijuana from the Department of Public Health to the Cannabis Control Commission. So what we have in our definitions, in our bylaw, are just making those changes. So going through the bylaw, the things that are new are bold and blue, the things that are red strikeouts are the things that are changed. So the article is to move to adopt the bylaw to comport with Cannabis Control Regulation Commissions. As we go through the bylaw, we see what those definitions are. So in this case, in 240-250, rather than formerly the Department of Public Health, it's now the Cannabis Control Commission. Same thing here. This is one of the more substantial changes that we had talked about in depth, is that the state has regulated, or changed the rules, that it doesn't have to be a not-for-profit for medical marijuana. So that is the change, not-for-profit, once again, the change by the Cannabis Control Commission. Here it is a change in the definition for a qualifying patient. In bold is the new definition, in red is the strike-through. No changes to C, D, and 1. Here, once again, the change is only from Cannabis Control, from the Department of Public Health. These numbers, 95 CMR 501, those are the state's regulations. The blue is under the Cannabis Control Commission, the red formerly under the Board of Health. And that takes place through the rest of the bylaw. And that's where we get to. Mr. Drewley's question, and we talked about a month ago, what is to keep medical marijuana from becoming recreational marijuana? There are two parts of our bylaw. Section 156 that says for marijuana establishments that those not specifically permitted or licensed for sale of medical marijuana shall be prohibited. And then in our zoning bylaw, under uses prohibited, it says that the only thing that's allowed for marijuana, except provided in 264, in chapter 240, 250, the medical marijuana part, anything else for marijuana will be prohibited from all zoning districts. So this is clearly a housekeeping measure just to change those, change in regulation, administration from the state, from the Department of Public Health to the Cannabis Control Commission. And we had talked about this quite a bit about a month ago.
John, you all set?
In the second or third, right there,
Yes, sir.
you said the blue is what's been added?
Correct. So,
So it says the word medical.
yes.
Could you address that just for a second,
Well,
please?
previously, the bylaw just said a marijuana treatment center,
Our bylaw.
our bylaw. And you had said, can we sort of put belt and suspenders with that and call it medical marijuana treatment center? So that was an addition that you had sort of asked about. Can we make it beyond a shadow of a doubt, as much as you can in zoning?
Okay.
To note that this is medical marijuana and not recreational marijuana.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Pam?
Is that how the state law reads as treatment center? Which is a real misnomer, I think, for a population thinking a treatment center is where people come to receive treatment for something.
Well-
Whereas this, you have to come in with a prescription from a doctor in order to enter and then have your prescription for pot filled.
Marijuana.
Sorry. I didn't say weed.
You didn't say weed. I usually go and get into the weeds about this time of night, administratively. The bylaw, our current bylaw has this slash, because I think they wanted to be as encompassing as possible. A medical marijuana treatment center / registered marijuana dispensary. So what we have, you'll be seeing shortly, is a medical marijuana dispensary that's been applied for on T-Ticket Highway. So our definition is, I have to go and look to see what the state's definition is, but essentially, our bylaw points out that, in our purpose, that, I should use this thing rather than use my finger, that our regulations have to be consistent with the regulations adopted for such facilities by the Cannabis Control Commission. So what the state's regulations are our regulations, and going through this with the folks who are applying for the medical marijuana facility, wanted to make sure we were on the same page, and this is what comports with the state. So I'll take a look and see what the state calls this is a treatment center, but that's essentially what our bylaw currently says. Calls them.
I think that just makes it much more confusing for people. That's all.
Okay, so any comments from any other board members? Any comments from the public? Please step up and identify yourself.
Barbara Wynn, Precinct 6. I just wanted, I think what Tom was trying to say is it would be called either a marijuana treatment center or, am I correct? Or a registered dispensary. And a dispensary has been requested on T-Ticket Highway, correct? So there may be some facilities that could be treatment centers, but the one that is currently being applied for is a dispensary. You bring in, to your point, Pam, a prescription from your doctor and you get a refill.
I mean, I've just never heard of a marijuana treatment center, and I'm a psychologist. I mean,
I'm
You know,
just
it's
saying
a-
that I think those are that slash is intended to convey.
But we're all okay with the language as proposed, right? I'm just trying to keep this ball rolling here.
keep it going, sorry. I just don't want it to be
I
confusing.
understand. You, so no other comments? What do we want to do here?
Well, I think considering it's our article, and we've been
Yeah.
over this a number of times,
We should move it.
we
I think
can
we can
move
move it
as
forward.
printed to the warrant.
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
It's housekeeping.
Yeah, well, he'll deal with it. Okay. Yikes. Thank you all for your patience. Applicant continued. Blue Flag Development LLC, special permit application for the construction, to construct parking areas within the front yard and site plan review. Application to construct improvements to Sippawisset campgrounds. Bracket Engineering, Inc. For the applicant,
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Eliza Cox. I'm an attorney with Nutter, McLennan & Fish, and here on behalf of the applicant. With me this evening from Blue Flag Development, the applicant is Brad Guidi and Tyler Hardy. In addition, the CEO of AutoCamp, the operator of the facility, Neil DePaula, is here. And Don Bracken from Bracken Engineering, who's the civil engineer, is also present. As the chair mentioned in reading the notice, there are two forms of relief that are being requested from you: site plan review and a special permit to allow for parking in the front yard. Just briefly, I thought I would give you a quick procedural update as to what we've been doing since we were last before you on January 22nd. So this project also requires relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we've been before them twice. We were initially before them on February 7th, but there wasn't a full board, so we elected to continue it without taking any testimony, but took the opportunity to invite anyone from the public who was here to listen to our presentation to meet with us. And we had a great meeting for probably over an hour with several people from the public. At that February 7th meeting, the zoning board expressed an interest in a site visit, so we scheduled a site visit with the board, the zoning board. I know several of you were there as well. That was held on February 16th. There was also town staff there, and again, interested members of the public attended that as well. And then finally, we were before the zoning board on February 21st for our first substantive public hearing on the project. It went well, and they ended up continuing their matter so that they could hopefully get the benefit of your decision on the project. So we're scheduled to be back before the zoning board on March 21st. We've also been before the Board of Health. We were there last night, and the Board of Health has now approved the wastewater treatment facility that's proposed, as well as granted relief from a couple of the local Board of Health provisions. So we're completed through the Board of Health process. In addition, since we were before you, we've engaged in neighborhood outreach. We've had meetings on the site. There have been calls, email exchanges, and discussions with interested neighbors. We've also updated plans, the site plans, since we were last before you. So the civil site plan, which you have the latest version, has been updated in response to the technical comments that we received. Including there's a new 8-inch water line running through the property. We've added details on the parking area. We've updated the stormwater management information in response to comments from engineering. Again, that's a significant improvement over existing conditions. And erosion control measures and details have been added to the plans. We've also made changes to the site plan in response to comments that we received at the initial public hearing before this board. Namely, one of them, which I'll show here. As you may recall, there were previously 4 parking spaces in this location, right up here closest to the northerly property line. They met zoning, but we heard comments from the neighborhood. Could you look at putting those parking spaces somewhere else? We did. So we've relocated those 4 parking spaces to allow for additional green space in this location. In addition, I'm going to pull up the landscape plans. We've also made changes to the landscape plans and submitted those to the board as well. There's several categories of changes that I'll just go over briefly. One is fencing. That was a subject of discussion at the initial hearing. This first plan that shows the proposed fencing. So there is existing stockade fencing approximately 6 feet high that runs along Palmer Avenue. This plan shows, and we're proposing to extend the stockade fence with new stockade fencing, also 6 feet high, to match the existing that would run along the entire frontage along Palmer Avenue. In addition, there is existing stockade fence about 8 feet at various areas along the northerly property line. As you can see on this plan, we are now proposing to match an 8-foot high stockade fence along the entire northerly property line. So those are 2 fencing changes that are different. In addition, a significant amount of additional landscaping has been added to the plan along the property frontage, along and within the parking areas, and along the northerly boundary. The planting schedule calls for an additional over 1,100 new plants, including trees and shrubs. This shows pictures of the proposed types of plants, and then there's a whole series of plans. sorry, moving too quickly. Showing all of the additional planting that's proposed along the frontage and along the northerly property line and within the parking areas. Lighting was another subject of discussion at the initial hearing. We've also revised the proposed lighting plan. So the revised plan eliminates the previously proposed pole lights in the parking area and replaces them with bollard lights. The bollard lights are only 18.5 inches off the ground, so they'll be very low, no longer the poles as we were previously showing. In addition, you'll see on the plan, and this has always been part of the project, that there would be low-level lighting along the proposed pathways. Those are also depicted on this plan, and those are 18 inches off of the ground. So as I hope you can see, we've worked really hard to try and be responsive to the comments that we heard, both from the board and also the public at the initial meeting. We've had discussions with neighbors to come up with this plan. We're really pleased with the plan that's before you. And we've worked, as I said, really hard to address the comments. This is, we think, a really good project for the town and the neighborhood. It's less intense than what exists now, and certainly less intense and impactful than what could be developed in a public use zoning district, which this property is zoned. I'm not going to go through all of the points on the slide because I think I covered them all at the last hearing, but just as a reminder, this slide compares sort of existing versus proposed impacts, and we think shows a net reduction of impacts for the neighborhood and also for the environment and the community.
Okay, question and comments from the board. Charlotte?
I think it's a great plan. And I want to commend you for your responsiveness to the neighborhood and to the planning board. It's just really admirable. Would that all the applicants would do that. I have a very strange question. When you go to country clubs that are using golf carts to get people around, there are a lot of golf carts all over the place. What's your picture of what you're doing with all these? It's not a limit. I'm just wondering, what's your plan?
Maybe I'll ask Brad or Neil to respond to that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairperson and members of the board. I'm Neil DePaula, the CEO of AutoCamp, and yeah, thanks. That was a great question. So we'll use a variety of electric carts around the property to help guests who don't have full facilities get to their campsites. And then we'll also have some members of our staff who use them for cleaning and turnover of some of the beds and whatnot. Then there'll also be some for maintenance staff fixing various things around the property. So at a similarly sized property in Yosemite, we have approximately 12 to 18 carts on the property. And they have they're electric, so they charge at night, and they have a home in the maintenance shed building, and there's a maintenance shed in the parking area.
I saw that. So the idea isn't that each person coming there parks his car, gets a little golf cart to put his suitcases in to drive to his trailer?
Correct. No, just like when you go camping, you typically have to walk to your campsite. You carry your stuff with you, and we provide red wagons, like radio flyer wagons and wheelbarrows. So it's sort of a fun event, putting the kids in the wheelbarrow and putting the kids in the wagon along with your bags.
It was the only question I had.
Anybody else?
No?
Question or comment?
I have one quick question. That's the first time I've seen ADA trailers. How many ADA trailers are you anticipating on this site?
So today, there's no accessibility on the property whatsoever, and so part of our renovation of the property includes making the entire site ADA accessible, including bathrooms, clubhouse facilities, and you might not be surprised to learn that there's not actually an off-the-shelf accessible RV. No manufacturers sell those, including Airstream. So we spent the last couple of years developing a model that we produce. We've worked with an architect to produce a really comparable unit to the Airstreams, but extremely comfortable and wheelchair accessible with a wheelchair shower. So the number is per code. There's a requirement that we have sort of a proportional number of accessible units to the total number of units that we have. So I don't remember offhand, I believe there's 5 or 6 units on site. They're designated on the plan.
There's Tyler Hardy Blue Flag Development. There's gonna be 5 accessible camp trailers and I believe 2 tents. So with the 98 Airstreams, there's 10 tent products, and 2 of those will be ADA accessible. So 2 of the 10 and 5 of the 98.
In the clubhouse, too.
In the clubhouse and to Neil's point, the rest of the facility that's common will be ADA accessible.
Thank you.
Any of the board members? Pam?
I just want to thank you for reaching out to the community and your butters and working with them, because I think that's made a huge difference.
Thank you. You know, we want to be part of the community for the next 30 years at least, hopefully much longer than that. But that's the way we look at any new property that we approach. So it was great to meet the community and understand the issues that are important to the community, and got to give a lot of credit to the community for reaching out, interacting, because they really love this community, and we're happy to be a part of it and be great neighbors.
Okay. Any members of the public? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Lou Stern, 49 Loop Road. I'm also the president of the Simple Worcester Place Homeowners Corporation, 41 homes opposite the marsh and the bikeway. I've been at both ZBA meetings, both planning board meetings, the tour of the facility. I've had 5 different meetings, conversations with Blue Flag. They've been extremely responsive, very much appreciated. The plan as it's currently presented is fantastic. We highly support it. The one thing I want to mention, based on what they've told me, they built into their business plan being able to pay for the occupancy taxes should the town of Falmouth decide to charge that tax. 4.7% of the 9.7 would come back to the town, which would be, based on what they've told me, approximately $200,000 or more per year. I highly encourage the town, whoever would be responsible for that, to consider that. I think it would give a lot back to the town. In addition to that, though, Blue Flag and others associated with this plan have been very kind and generous in saying that they've already started to reach out with organizations in the town to support the bike path, Phragmites Control, Buzzards Bay, lots of other organizations. So I think they are going to be a very strong support of the community and good neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please step up.
I didn't expect that.
I'm Barbara Fagan. I live at 50 Barnabas Road, and I am one of the abutters that probably is going to see much more than anyone else. I think there's one other person as well, but she's not here tonight. As an abutter, I'm asking Blue Flag Development if they would commit tonight to adding an 8-foot fence for specific sites with the appropriate shrubbery as they were doing that they're doing in other areas.
As I see, what area I thought they have an 8-foot plan on the whole northern, on the plan we're seeing right now, shows an 8-foot plan on the whole northern side.
Yeah.
So where are we missing this?
Hi, I'm good.
So the 8-foot fence does go along that property. Let's go back and pull it up here.
Maybe we haven't seen it. Is this new?
Well, no, but I just wanted to be sure that it was 8, and I'm concerned, well,
It shows mentioning 8 feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
well, it doesn't do any good. That's why I'm asking about the higher, really high
Well, you can see,
shrubbery,
so,
we
yeah,
looked
so
at
Barbara, I
that.
think your house is, sorry, in this area, I believe, right?
See, my fence is really, really low, and where the Airstreams are gonna be
Is
up,
elevated.
it's very much higher. So I will see in certain specific areas, all of it, but not just the kitchen. When I looked more into, when we walked the land with them, from my sunroom, it's all glass, and I will see all of a whole section.
Yeah,
Could you
Barbara,
pull up the
show
plan
them.
that shows the
Show them.
landscaping?
Your house
All
is
right,
here,
so,
right?
yeah, remember the sunroom?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
talked about
Got
that, it was
So
all
let
glass.
me pull up and show you what we're.
Show the landscaping plan.
Yeah. So Barbara's house is,
Would you please identify yourself?
sorry, Brad Goity with Blue Flag Development.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks. I believe Barbara's house is kind of right in this area here. Further to the right? This way?
No.
Here.
This way. Oh, Jack, introduce yourself.
Can we go back to the original plan? There, point
All right.
where it is.
All right, so we are, where this is fence, right? This is fence?
Yeah.
We're right here. There's one that has our name on
You,
it.
you have the existing fence, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, we
what-
have the,
yeah.
that's existing.
Yeah.
fence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's where
75
I was
feet, yeah.
pointing, kind of right,
Okay, yeah.
right in this area is where Barbara's house is.
But see, it's, when you're down here, when you're on the side of my house, all that sunroom, we can see all of these.
Yes. So what we've done, Barbara, is we've added the 8-foot fence as discussed, continuing your fence along the property, and then we've supplemented it with, as much planting as we could fit
Can
in
you
there.
tell me how high these plantings are? Are you gonna put
Well-
some really big tall trees? Because my fence is not gonna do any good for
The-
the,
All the caliper of the trees are noted. Unfortunately, I can't read them, nor can I read what the species is at the moment.
yeah, I've got
but
all
they-
that on that plan.
They are noted on there.
Yeah, some of them aren't very high, that's why. Okay, that's, you answered my question.
Flip to the landscape page.
Look, is this-
Well, the one that shows the trees.
Apparently, now we've gone over it. Something for the Board of Appeals.
Yeah.
There are Leland cypresses.
It's gonna take time for them to grow.
Yeah, it does take time. That's normal, you can't bring in a 30-foot tree.
Right.
Sure, I
Leland
think, Barbara,
cypress
when
grow
we,
really
when we walked the
fast.
site, we did walk along that area.
Right.
And talk about the solutions, which I think we've reflected here.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we talked about is this is obviously gonna be a much more attractive, more organized layout than what is currently proposed on the site. And the third thing is, and it's hard to reflect here because there's a lot of existing vegetation, and it would certainly be an extremely arduous task to try to tag every existing piece of vegetation on 12 and a half
Can't.
acres. But there is a little design build that has to go into projects like this, and understanding that for us, it's as important as to not see your house for our campers, so they feel like they're in an environment that is natural as it is for you not to see us. So,
Did you talk to the engineers about the berm at all? Remember we talked about the berm when we were
Excuse
walking?
me, we can't hear you. You're having a private conversation
Well, when we
over
were
there.
walking, we were talking about a berm because of the way our house is and our fence is. We were talking about that, but he couldn't, he couldn't tell us then. He said something about
again,
looking at
what we
it.
talked
Can't.
about was adding a berm. However, if you add a berm, then you also take down existing vegetation. So it's difficult, and that's going, again, back to kind of design build on a site like this. It's difficult to identify exactly where a berm would go without saying, I'm gonna take down these dead trees that are existing.
Could,
I'll recognize anybody else, sure.
yes, okay.
Please come up.
Yeah.
Bob Johnson, live in Saconesset, part of the abutters, but on Saconesset Road. I think what Barbara was asking, well, let me start off first. They have been most cooperative with this neighborhood. They have been unbelievable. Brad and his team, Neil, the engineers, all of the construction people have answered and tried to answer all our questions, took a lot of time. Talked to Tom also. So we are very pleased with the partnership that we think we'll have over the number of years that some of us will be around. I think Barbara's question was, for some
Oh,
specific...
excuse me, sir. You need to talk to the
Okay,
microphone and
sorry.
all comments here. They can't hear you at home when you turn around, and it
Yes,
defeats the whole purpose.
I understand. Thank you. I'm sorry. I think, Brad, Barbara's point was, looking out her window, the slope goes down a little bit. That's where you couldn't plant the berm. It'd be too low. When it comes up and she sees a certain amount of these airstreams, if there was a fence from that view, if there was a fence where they could be protected from seeing that solid piece of metal, I think that's what Barbara's asking for. So there's a view she has, and then there's gonna be some airstreams there. That view up further will cover that, I believe, help significantly. You have to see it from
Yeah,
her.
so Bob, what I understand, I think I understand what you're asking for is a fence interior to the exterior fence?
Yes, for certain of these airstreams, because they're gonna be right in her line of vision.
Would it be more appropriate, instead of putting a fence interior to another fence, to add?
Shrubs?
To add landscaping, which we did discuss. There's gonna be interior landscaping
Sure.
around the.
But these specific ones, if you did Leland cypress or those kinds of things, particularly there, I think that would work very, very well. Just to block that initial site of that.
That's, Leland cypress is what is
If
on
you
the-
plant Leland cypress, in 5 years, you won't see anything. I mean, they
Yeah, well,
grow
that's
unbelievable.
the point, and we're not talking about the whole campground. We're only
Right, but
talking
so
about
your
a few.
problem could be solved by just putting Leland cypress in the right spots.
Yes,
Okay. And I've heard you said you do that. Is that what I heard?
Yes, correct.
Please step back up again. I'm sorry to make you do that, but that's our rule. We don't let people speak to the
Barbara
audience.
Fagan, 50 Barnabas Road. I forgot to ask, it was on my sheet of paper. I would love it, Brad, if you'd come to my house and look at what I'm seeing. And that might
Absolutely,
help you.
which I've done already, and
On
I'm
the-
happy to do
on
again.
that- No, on the campground
Okay.
side, on the campground side.
Yeah.
I mean, on my side.
through her
From
window.
my through
Okay.
my
Yeah.
window, through my sunroom. I'd
So
really like you
I
to
want to
see it.
keep this moving, but it sounds like we've got an agreement to move some Leland cypress around to solve your problem,
Yes, correct.
okay? Is that okay with you? Yep. Believe me, it'll disappear. I don't know if you're familiar with Leland cypress, but they're big and they grow fast.
And I have one more question, and that's to Brad. And along Palmer Avenue, my understanding is we're gonna have the 6-foot fence. We're gonna have the fence, the lower part of the fence will be higher than the road, so for most of the drive along Palmer Avenue, we will not see the parking lot.
Right.
And then inside of that are gonna be the shrubs. So one of the questions I have, I couldn't tell on the map, how far in was that fence from the road? Because at some locations, as we discussed, Brad, there are some rocks there, and I just wanna know how you're gonna navigate that.
There's an existing fence there.
Don Bracken, the project engineer. The fence is going to go right along the right-of-way line, and the row of rocks is approximately along that right-of-way line. So it's going to be pretty close to where you see those rocks.
So the fence will be on the roadside?
Well, no, it'll be on the inside. Won't be in the right-of-way. It'll probably be a foot or so inside on our own
And then
property.
And then the shrubs?
Correct.
And, fine, I think that is.
Have you had a chance to see the amount of plantings they're showing here?
We've counted them, we can tell you how many they have
Okay,
by
okay.
by footage, believe me.
Okay, because I just see an awful lot of planting. I wasn't sure you guys saw it.
No, we have, and we've looked at all the pieces of it. And we're very pleased with all the efforts that they put out. I want to make sure that's perfectly clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else, please? First, one at a time. I pointed at both of you. Ladies first, then you, and we'll just try to keep. Who else? I want to see anyone else need to speak? Just want to keep this moving. Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name's Jeanette Robinson, owner of Frederick William House, luxury boutique lodging in Falmouth at 594 Palmer Avenue, and neighbor to Future Auto Camp. Mr. Neil DePaula and his group are going to be developing at 836 Palmer Avenue. I just wanted to contribute and mention that having this unique lodging hospitality business is definitely going to be a fantastic opportunity for Falmouth's hospitality and tourism development, one that will draw people to experience Falmouth because of our innovative and trend-setting accommodations. And that this particular project is going to set us apart to be a definite sought-after destination. Businesses like this solve our Airbnb issue that we have struggled with for decades at this point, and the rundown vacation rental problem, the seedy strip motel issue, and put Falmouth lodging at the top. Falmouth is continuing to grow as a sought-after Cape Cod destination, and now with competing places like Bar Harbor, Maine, Martha's Vineyard, and Mystic, Connecticut, improvements like this and redevelopment specifically of the Sippawisset campgrounds, will not only continue a long legacy, but improve and reinvent a luxury camping experience that will only enhance future tourism and travel to our beautiful coastal vacation destination.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Sir, please.
Kevin O'Brien, 70 Barnabas Road. First, I feel constrained to say, I don't know what that commercial was about, but as far as the folks in Saconaset, we'd like to be left alone. Now, these people seem to be legitimate businessmen, obviously dedicated to doing a good project. And I think that we can only hope that they'll live up to their commitments. What I'm looking for here tonight is my neighbors to the right and my neighbors to the left were here earlier, but unfortunately, things went along and they had to leave. One of them, it traveled quite a distance to be here. And I just would like some commitment from these people that they would work with us when they go along in back of us. The three properties that I'm talking about are the closest to the property that they're developing. We've always been that way. And it is one especially further south of me that has, you'll never be able to alleviate all of their problems. It's just a physical reality. But it would be nice to know that there would be a commitment to work individually with us while you're going in back of us, because we're the closest ones living. And also unique for Saconaset, everybody's, well, almost everybody's year-round resident.
Okay.
Anyone else?
So we move to close the hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so, Tom, you've heard a lot to work on. Please close the hearing, and we'll work on you developing a decision.
That'd be a positive motion I would be
Yes,
working on?
yes. To taking into consideration everything you've heard tonight,
I suspected, I just wanted to make sure.
okay? So what we do is, we listen to you, then Tom, our
Corey.
town plan, Corey, they draft our decision, taking your comments tonight in place, and hopefully the applicant will agree with it, and we vote it, and then it happens. So that's the next process. So we're done with public hearings. You don't have to come back. You can watch on TV. We won't be taking any more public comment, but we'll be putting your comments into our decision and having an internal discussion ourselves and moving it forward. That's the process. Okay? Thank you all. Please leave quietly. We have more work to do. And I'm gonna try to keep going.
Oh my God, poor Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah. Please be quiet and move out, folks. We all have to get home too, and I'm gonna keep the meeting moving. I'm gonna try to keep the meeting moving. So much for that. Okay. Planning Board decision. Applicant Jason Sullivan, site plan review, application for an accessory apartment in the basement at 64 Fresh Pond Road.
Do we have a draft?
Now, we've seen this before,
Yeah,
right?
came,
I can't find my draft.
We don't have a draft decision on this, I don't believe.
We don't have a draft decision?
No, we were waiting for the site plan that showed the grading on the right side of the
Do
property.
we have it?
We do.
it's up there.
Okay, please move on, folks. We all want to go home too.
We get rid of,
Patience.
I think, fresh, isn't that Fresh Pond here?
Yes, this is
Yeah.
Fresh Pond. Thank you. I was, got buried.
Fresh Pond is under your other drawings.
It's down on the
It's
bottom.
underneath these.
Here. Look, dig down. Take
Underneath
this
this.
off,
Yep, there we are.
and there it is on the screen.
So, if I may, we
we worked with the applicant, we worked with Jason, by the way, one of the more patient people in the room.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And essentially, put together the plan. The picture we had seen previously was of the side of the building with 2 windows, and the question was, well, how do we make those 2 windows into 2 doors, and does water run in the house if we do that?
Right.
So the owner did this exquisite drawing of what they're planning on doing. There's a gravel road sidewalk along the side. There's a, stop pointing with my finger. There's a gravel walk along the front. There's a French drain over here to catch some of that water that may come down. As they excavate, the slopes are going downhill this way, the slope is moving in this way. There's a 6-foot concrete retaining wall. Spaces, 2 parking spaces, 1 and 2 here, and the walkway from those parking spaces in front of the stone wall to get to this point. There's a little bit of landscaping they proposed for some plantings and things like that. But essentially, this is sort of the thing that the board has been talking about. Can a resident just do this without having to hire a lot of engineers?
Yeah.
And I think they've done a very nice job.
Yep.
And I didn't mean to steal Jason's thunder, but happy to.
No, I think it's important that we get the details, but we also allow, especially when a by right issue with the house, that they don't have to spend a lot of money on engineering. So I do appreciate seeing the drainage, what the doors will actually look like. What is the siding of the existing property?
Jay, head up to the microphone, introduce yourself again, please.
Jason Sullivan, contractor for the project. We just initially got the house with the 203K loan. Whatever, we did all new siding and new windows. It's been a work in progress. So right now it's fresh white cedar siding on the gable end, but it's only going down, so it's gonna be a painted concrete wall where the doors are.
Okay, and how about the front of the house? What's the siding on the front?
Clapboard.
Is it all the way, in particular, was there a garage there at one time?
Yes.
What's in front of the garage now? What's the siding you're gonna put there?
Well, it's board, the door kind of looks the same. We put like tongue and groove pine.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
Tongue and groove pine, what is that, T111? Is that a plywood?
I guess T111 would be a replica of it.
A replica of
but
it.
it's the-
We get to ask those questions, we don't get to dictate. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, so.
Pam, go ahead.
To the right, on the far right, is that like a sliding glass door, or is it, what is that?
I'm not sure where, it might have been the
right
old
there.
garage area where.
That's the old garage.
That's where it
Can't
was.
see it from that, yeah.
So that's no longer a garage?
No.
Under?
No, there's a door to the left of that, where the garage door was. It's like storage now, but it's just not for a car.
Bob?
Where you show the apartment parking, is there any planting in front of those spaces, from looking at it from the street?
Yeah, looking at it from the street, it'll be right
Do I say
there.
hydrangea?
On the.
Okay, is that what, okay,
See the landscaping plan? I think I see, am I reading flower?
okay,
Border,
I didn't see
hydrangea.
that. Okay, yep,
It's
Okay.
already
Good.
bordered, and more on the street, closer to next to the mailbox.
Yeah.
There's really tall arborvitae's there already.
Okay,
so
great.
You can't really see in.
good,
Good, that's what we needed.
that's what we're looking for. Yeah, I like this, this is,
It's terrific.
you could do illustrations for kid magazines or kid books, It's nice,
I like the drawings.
yeah, yeah.
Well, our goal is to let people be able to do this
Yeah, I
without
was trying to
spending
get
a lot
a
of
good
money,
visual
so
of what.
I think you've accomplished that.
Yep, this is good.
And how large is the apartment?
It's
It
under
meets the
40%.
percentages, yeah,
It's
we
on-
we
it's-
covered that before.
Yeah. 18 by 22 roughly. Outside dimensions.
Yeah, it met the criteria.
We met the criteria, he's coming back with questions
Yeah, revisions with the
That we asked for.
drainage and
Yeah,
wall and
his
doors.
previous plan didn't show any of this.
You did a great job on this.
What's,
If I may,
Yes,
the
please.
apartment will be 468 square feet, which is
Less than
essentially
40%.
39%.
39%, yep.
yep.
And another thing, we added a little storage area within the apartment, you know,
Yeah.
built-in
Thank you.
storage.
Okay.
Any more questions from the board?
No.
Any questions from the public? What's your pleasure, board?
Positive motion,
Yeah.
to,
So you'll draft that for us? We'll have a decision next week,
Yes, sir.
next meeting?
On next meeting.
Back
Positive,
to the,
that's the 12th?
12.
the 12th,
The 12th.
it'll be positive, okay?
Okay.
We'll have a motion for
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your patience, and
problem.
find somebody else to do this again. This is
Okay.
good.
Great, thanks.
Okay, wow.
Okay.
And now,
Oh, I gotta take this.
okay, go ahead.
Okay. Woods Hole Partners LLC, as you would notice, they are not here this evening. I sat down with our staff and we went over all of the open items yet, and it was rather voluminous. You have this in your packets as to what needs to be handled, and there was more than they could do, and the meeting with the engineering department is March 5th. And so, having said all of that, we have a letter here from the applicant saying, as was discussed at the planning board hearing held on February 12, 2019, the applicant is requesting an extension to the allowed time frame for site plan review. Based on your email of February 20, it seems an extension until March 29, 2019 is the most prudent course of action. As such, this letter will constitute the applicant's formal request and assent to an extension until March 29, 2019, and this is written by Kevin Clower. So I would need a motion to accept the request.
Motion
So
to
moved.
accept the request.
Okay, moved and
Second.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And I recuse myself.
Yes.
I didn't leave the room because it was going to be quick. I didn't
Thanks for doing all this.
influence any votes. Okay,
Oh, yeah, it was necessary.
okay, next on the agenda, Planning Board appointment to Recodification Working Group.
Alrighty, we have our first meeting scheduled for March 6th for the zoning recodification working group, working with Frank Duffy. And we need two appointees, or two volunteers essentially, from the planning board to work on the zoning recodification. So I'll let you discuss amongst yourself who those people might be.
I want Pat to be one of them.
I knew that was happening.
And Charlotte?
Charlotte.
Is that good with everybody else?
Yeah.
Sure.
Good, we're all set.
Nobody else wants to do
Yeah.
that.
Pat and Charlotte.
I have a question on that.
What time of day?
Quick, we want to vote it quick, Bob, before they change their mind.
5 PM.
5 PM.
Oh,
I have
okay.
a question on that.
Yes, sir.
How long a period of time do you anticipate this continuing? What kind of commitment are we getting from these people? Is it gonna be another year, or?
Our trajectory is to have recodification in front of town meeting in November.
Okay, so it's not that long. Yeah,
So
thank you.
as we talked about before, the recodification is sort of rearranging the parts. In addition to the recodification, there'll be some other articles as well about removing some things from the bylaw that really are, met their day.
Okay.
And we'll be also identifying those other areas for potential verbiage as well.
Like the site plan that we saw tonight where nobody could understand what
There
it
are,
said.
there are, in general, there are no shortage of painful sentences and paragraphs in zoning bylaws. We just want to try to get rid of as many of ours as we can.
The first meeting is when, Tom?
March 5th, Ash Wednesday.
March 5th or 6th?
Ash Wednesday, 6th or 5th, let me get my.
No, you said first one and then the other.
I did, well, let me get my calendar.
And do you happen to
It's-
know who the rest of the group is?
Yes, it would be our building commissioner, Rod Palmer, our zoning enforcement officer, Ollie Fitzpatrick,
Ollie?
Noreen Stockman, our new zoning administrator, myself, Corey, Frank Duffy, assistant town council, and 2 members of the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
Paul, you had another question?
Vote for Pat Kerfoot so she can remain on this committee. She doesn't get elected.
That is Wednesday, March 6th
6th. At 5 o'clock?
at 5 PM.
And we don't know where
Yeah,
yet,
so-
exactly.
So that was a political statement
It
you
would be-
made there, Paul.
It'll be here in the building.
Yeah, I know that,
Yeah.
but, okay.
Okay,
The building commissioner has offered their meeting space downstairs there.
Okay.
if the board doesn't mind, I'd like to move beyond committee reports and Davis Straits, bring them up another time. They're always on the agenda.
Yeah,
I would just, because of the hour, I'd just like to keep moving.
yeah.
Okay?
Can I add something that's not on the agenda? Just an observation?
Go ahead, we'll give it a,
We
what is
sat
it?
here- We sat here with a very lengthy agenda item, and previously I said, when we have consultants here, and there's several working on a project, we should move them up at the beginning rather than have them sit to the end of a
Well,
public
The reason why
discussion.
the reason why that happened, I was unaware that the Woods Hole group wasn't gonna be heard, and I had it deliberate at the end, because I was gonna recuse myself and leave the room, so I would have done that if I would have known about it.
It just seems to me, when you have a list of
I agree.
consultants in here, it's...
I agree, but I didn't find out until we were sitting down tonight. I didn't find out until I sat down that it had been changed, so that's why it didn't happen. I would have done that automatically.
Thank you.
This is not exactly a committee report, but I want to hand it out. Charlotte and I sat down, much like Bob did with how you do, and we need a design review protocol.
Okay.
And so this comes out of what Corey put together, and Charlotte and I put a few
Okay, I want
other
to make
things
this
together.
an agenda item for the future.
Yes.
That's what this is.
That's
This is-
why I'm
This is a
handing this
proposed
out.
future agenda item.
Totally.
So we've moved beyond general
Charlotte, you've got
correspondence
yours, or-
and
No,
passed this out as a future
Okay,
agenda item.
and Tom needs,
So this is,
Tom and Corey need. So just think about it.
yeah, and,
And these are for our business zone properties we're talking about.
Ones for which we have design
Design review,
review
which is our business zone property.
responsibility, and it's so we would have a protocol we could follow. It's awkward to be quoting Yarmouth. I mean, it would be.
yeah, I know, but,
Right, but it points out the need for us to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something like this.
And Charlotte has found Bedford also, which is,
Yeah, there's a bunch of them that we can feed off of.
Okay? You'll work it into the agenda sometime in the future?
I will. I don't know that
After
it'll
town
be
meeting.
before, I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, thank
after-
you.
After town
this
meeting.
is just thought
Right,
material.
right.
I don't see landscaping on here.
It's there.
Well, even, we can
The
think
third one
about
from
it,
the
we
bottom,
can
site
also
grading,
use it.
landscaping, appearance, compatibility with the environment. Next meeting, March 12th. That completes our agenda.
I move to adjourn.
We're adjourned.